Poducer.
What should we start with? No, I'm just kidding. So what do we do? I'll do like a proper intro. I've been trying to do that. Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to Poducer, the podcast for producers. Today we are joined by KC Wray.
Hello.
I said that correct.
Yeah,
right? Okay.
You did.
KC, what do you do for the people? Like, to tell them. Not like for the people. Maybe you do stuff for the people, but what do you do?
So I am a producer, DJ, and co-owner and creative director of the new iteration of The Warehouse. And yeah, that's
That stuff.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. We always start out with just like a fun question, which is, what was your first concert that you went to? Not like a performance.
God.
I know, it's a thinker.
I mean, I'm 36, so it's like I remember where it was. It was in like St. Louis, and my parents took me to like one of these like boomer rock bands. Like, I want to say Styx, I think is what it was.
Styx?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Domorigato mister. Did they play that one?
I don't know.
They probably did.
I was like 5 or 6 or something like this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this was early on. Are your parents, they're the boomers?
I mean,
yeah. Yeah. For sure. Okay.
No, it was about a lot of, people who are now in their like late 60s, like whole place smelled like weed. So,
that's sick.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, Mommy, what's that smell?
Did you were not aware? You were just like, oh.
It just smelled like skunk. And I was like, oh, what's that?
Yeah. And you said this was in St. Louis? Mm-hmm. Or are you from St. Louis?
Mm-hmm. I was born in St. Louis, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. Was born in St. Louis and then basically later moved to Germany. Basically lived half my life in between like St. Louis and Germany.
That's crazy. But now it's Chicago in Germany.
Now it's Chicago in Germany.
So when
I moved to Chicago from Germany, from Berlin.
Really? Mm-hmm. What was the draw?
To Chicago? I mean, I've always been like DJing and playing house music. I've been drawn to it since I was like a kid. I used to listen to, I think one of the first cassette tapes, like I got like a cassette tape as a kid from like a Robert Owens cassette tape. And, I've always liked a lot of the, back then like the 90s pop house stuff, like the Technotronic, Pump Up the Jam, Inner City, like all this kind of stuff. And I had no clue that it was even called like house music. I was like, oh, this is like, like dance music. And, once I started DJing, which was like 2008-9 when I first started DJing, like I was instantly like gravitating towards like house music and moved back to Germany. And then when I was in Germany, I started DJing again. And I kind of realized like, oh shit, like, I started getting bookings in like Luxembourg, and then I was living in the southwest of Germany, so I get bookings in Luxembourg, and then like over in Metz in France, like right across the border, and then in Frankfurt, and I didn't really have any money to like travel. It was like my first job when I like moved over there. I was like teaching English, and I was like basically like broke, and so I was like, man, I'm living in Europe and everything's so close, but I can't even afford to like travel. And then like started DJing, and then people were like, yeah, we're gonna like, give you your fee, and I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of tight if I got to buy my flight, and we're going to buy your flight, and we're going to pay for your hotels. And I was like, oh, okay. Like this can be, yeah, exactly. All right. So, yeah, then one thing led to another, and then I like left. I was living in Saarbrücken is the name of the town. It's like right on the border of France. And then started getting bookings in Berlin and moved up to Berlin and started getting some residencies there, playing a lot. And that's actually what caused me to move to Berlin. And then, I don't know, Berlin started moving more in this, like, if you're not doing, like, super hard techno, you're just not getting booked, period. Like, because they have no interest in anything else.
Really?
And so that kind of, like, I was like, okay, well, this is getting kind of annoying. I mean, I was, like, DJing sometimes, like, 5-6 days a week. Getting, like, sometimes, I mean, I had a gig on a Tuesday in a bar. And I was playing on some, like, old, like, CDJ 400s. You know, I'd have like 2 USB sticks, and these were like the little bitty old school
platters.
Did they even take USB sticks? I thought like it was like CDs only. At a
No,
point, right?
this one. So there's the 400, and then there was like the 400D, and then there was like another model, and then that model was the first model to take USB sticks. Yeah, and it's like completely, it looks like a calculator. Like there's no was it album artwork or anything. It doesn't tell you when you've played the song before. So you had like 2 USB sticks completely loaded up, and I played at this bar called like Old CCCP. It's still there actually, and I would play from like 10 p.m. and sometimes to like 8 o'clock in the morning, like just like straight through.
Wow.
And just get like wrecked the whole night. I like, yeah, I got.
Was it like good pay, or was it more like a passion? Because it's just
like
such a long gig.
It's one of those things where you just kind of like everybody was kind of fighting for slots, so you just kind of took what you had.
Yeah.
So I guess it was passion that like made you take this horrendous pay. I mean, because you just really liked doing music.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I was happy. Like it was a good day if I left with 80 euros because I got 10% of the bar. So if the bar did 800 euros, I made like 80.
Yeah.
And like on a Tuesday, 800 euros is like a lot. It's like almost 1,000 euros on the bar, so it's quite a lot. And yeah, I don't know. I did that, and
yeah.
then I had like a gig on a Wednesday. Then I'd play Thursday, every other week at another place, and like yeah, I don't know. I got sick of like watching people who just because they were doing techno get like 800 1,000 euros, but because you're doing house music, playing the same events, playing the same venues, sometimes playing higher up on the lineup than these guys, and then getting 200 euros, 250 euros put in your hand. I'm just like,
yeah,
all right, this isn't making much sense.
So I mean, do we got to talk about this? Like, I know Mace is curious about the whole like Berlin experience too, but like, yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start. Like, how do you compare? It's like such a broad question. Like, compare DJing in Berlin versus here,
It's way different. I mean, there are some parties and some events here in Chicago that I would say, as far as like the vibe is concerned, are on that level. I mean, I think the stuff at like Podlaze or Podlaze, I'm sure I'm butchering this. I don't speak.
Oh,
Polish.
yeah, no, I've never been.
I don't speak Polish. So.
Isn't that's in Chicago though?
Yeah,
right?
it's right on. What is it, Milwaukee and I think Central Park? Yeah. Like right on the border of is it Logan and Avondale?
I was saying Podlassey, and I can't be more wrong. So
it's apparently, and it's like people have told me this. I got a lot of Polish friends, and they're like, "No, it's like Podlasie," and I was like, "All right, okay." And then I'll say it right 3 times and then butcher it. Like,
yeah,
you speak German, but it's so different from Polish.
Yeah, it's like it's
can't really.
Yeah, totally different. My mouth don't make those noises.
So like they have a good little party at that venue.
That place is popping.
Is it?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm not even that far from there. I gotta go.
I'm seriously, it's a vibe. I like they've got this very, like up front. There's this like like mid-century like Polish Eastern European like furniture. It's very like like this like mid-century style like antique leather seats and stuff. And there's this like 1970s. Like wallpaper on the wall, and it's very like I don't know, I guess
like loungy or like
see, in Berlin we have these things called like Tanzbars, like dance bars, and it reminds me of this. It's like a traditional bar up front. There's like a little lounge area where there's plenty of room for people to sit, and then the back there's like a small area like to dance. But it's like yeah, it's a good combination. It makes it fun. You can go talk to your friends, chill out for a bit, and then like go back there. In the back, it's like super dark. Like people are there like to have a good time. Nobody has their phones out. It's like none of that shit. Like so.
Yeah.
So to me, I like it. That's what I was used to. It's a super receptive crowd.
For sure. I feel like, okay, just to like steer this a little bit more, like how did you find yourself in Berlin? Like you said, you went there to teach. But again, that's like kind of a major thing to be like, I'm going to go there and then now live there and, Yeah,
so like I said, I moved to Saarbrücken and I was actually in the Air Force, like still I was in the Air Force Reserves, and I had to, I did that to pay for my college. And then I had to switch my units. And part of like me getting out of that unit and getting a new contract meant that I had to extend for 2 more years. And so I did that. And then once those 2 years were up, I mean, I was living in Saarbrücken, and to be honest, like it's a cool little town, and you know, that's kind of where I was able to really kind of get my feet wet. But I mean, there was nothing really kind of going on there, so I started getting a lot of bookings and booking requests in Berlin, even while I was living there. And so I kind of realized that okay, I can, you know, move to Berlin, and I've already kind of got like a base.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like, it's not like I just woke up one day and was like, I'm going to move to Berlin, you know.
Have you been to the Berghain?
I have been to the Berghain.
Okay, yeah, that's like the only club I know because it's just notorious. But yeah, how was that experience? Is it a good club compared to other clubs? Does it live up to the hype?
Okay, this is my opinion, but there definitely is a hype factor there, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, when I went there, you know, there's like the intimidation factor on the door, like, oh, like, is my hair parted right? Am I going to get in?
I got denied. Yeah, I got denied. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Yeah.
You know, I used to work like at a couple of places as like a bouncer actually in Berlin, and then for like extra money. And I used to work with like a lot of the doormen, and from like the conversations I've had with them, they do want to keep like tourists out, and there is sort of like a when you live in Berlin long enough, you can kind of like smell like the softness on somebody. You can like, oh, this guy hasn't seen some crazy shit. You know what I mean? Like you've got some life and youth in your eyes still. Like you're just not completely like, you know. I've seen a guy
desensitized.
I've seen a guy get fisted in the club. Nothing phases me anymore. You know? So.
Yeah. Well, so like that's the thing is like that's how you hear it is. There's like literally like sex parties and just like crazy shit going on. Like,
I mean,
is that real? How real?
Yes, but it's not as in your face as you would think it is.
Okay.
I mean.
You're
I don't
like,
know.
well, no,
I'll just tell you the first time I went there, like, you know, when I went there the first time, I was with Kevin Knapp and Audio Jack. And actually Audio Jack, the guys, both Jamie and Richie, they were playing at Counterculture with Kevin, which is like right across the street, basically. Richie wanted to go. Jamie was the sensible one and made him go home. So then me and Kevin and a group of friends like went to Berghain. We got in. Like Kevin Knapp actually like bucked up on the doorman that day, and the doorman like walked up and he goes, you know, it was like, I don't know, 8:00 in the morning on a Sunday, and he goes, have you been here before? Or, you know, and like Kevin's like, nigga, I make house music. And the doorman was just like, I didn't ask that.
Yeah, did it work?
Dude, he was like so thrown off guard, he just let us in. I mean, it's not too often that two big black dudes like roll up at the door at Berghain anyways. So yeah, he let us in, and you know, you go in there and the place is like, it's massive. It is like massive. It's an old, like a power plant basically. It's like there's like 150-foot ceilings. It's insane.
Yeah.
And it's got this very brutalist, like, you know.
Yeah, brutalist. Yeah.
Architecture.
There's like concrete and whatever.
Dude, there's a 30-foot marble angel at the bottom of the stairwell that somebody hand carved.
Wow.
Like the statue of like, it's like a statue of like David the angel, and it's like just like gigantic.
Whoa.
And the entire place is like an art gallery.
Yeah.
Like that's the best way I can put it. Like it's got like they've and this is true with like for a lot of Berlin clubs and just Berlin in general, and actually it's like Europe in general, but they go the extra mile when it comes to like every fine detail, like shit you would never expect to see here. Everything is like, there's a bar called the Bear Bar. So if you walk up another Berghain floor and you turn left and you go up the other stairs, like there's stairs that are like parallel to the Panorama Bar stairs. And when you go up there, there's like a bear bar, and it's for like, you know, like bears and like a heavyset gay guy.
Mm.
And you go in,
okay, bears, I was not following at first, but yes, I know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's a bar, and in this bar, they had like sculptures out of like sugar. They like would take sugar, you know, put it in a pile, heat it, and then they like, while it was, you know, I guess like still caramelized, they like formed like, you know, like it looked like a bunch of like bodies like intertwined, like laying on the floor. And like they had like, the detail was so insane down to like the musculature and like the backs and stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean? This is what this place is.
Yeah. So worth the hype? Not worth the hype?
I've been there like a shitload of times. I've literally gone there just to like go get ice cream before. They have like an ice cream and sandwich bar, and like there was like a joke that like there's a DJ in Berlin named Click Click, and we were just like, oh, you want to go get ice cream? All right. And that means we go into Berghain, look around a little bit, see what's going on, grab an ice cream and leave.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm like really used to it. So sometimes like the crowd is like super, super dope. You know, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. Everybody is legitimately there to dance.
Probably more locals at that point, or like at least everyone is, you know, there for the music or
yeah.
there
I mean,
for the vibe.
yeah, everybody. And but the thing is, there's like a couple different crowds that go there. You've got like the people that are like 100% there for the music. Then you have those people that like, it's like their religion to go to Berghain. Like that's all they do every weekend.
Yeah.
And these are like, we only go to Berghain. You know,
the techno elitist comes out in them. Like,
yeah. I mean, but like the funny thing is, these exact same people, you would see them like move from, like the Ireland or like the Netherlands. They're in Berlin for like 6 months. They show up and they've got like a turtleneck up to their neck, and they're just like, oh, you know, I'm a little baby in this big city. And then like 6 months later, they're like all black and like Balenciaga glasses and just like, I'm just too techno for this world. You just don't even know. And it's like, bro, shut the fuck up.
Do you like techno?
I do. I like good techno.
Yeah.
I sometimes like the Berghain techno is too like industrial for me. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely more into like the Detroit style that has a bit more like soul and rhythm and groove to it. But I mean, on festivals and sometimes like, I think even that like really like boom, boom, boom stuff can be, it has its time and place. It's just not something that I would typically gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's just this techno snobbery. I like techno too.
Yeah.
I agree. But for some reason, specifically with that genre, do you think it originates from places like the Berghain, where it's like, so this is life?
Yeah, I mean, they've definitely done a good job with like lifestyle branding in that venue. I mean, like people, like I said, people like live for that venue.
Right.
But I don't. I guess I've never like gotten that into like any one place where I've like made that part of my identity.
Yeah. You're not. You can appreciate it without making it your identity.
Exactly.
Totally. I totally get that. So, what would be some underrated places in Berlin that, you know, just because again, the only thing that we know or I know is the Berghain. Never been to Berlin. But where, like, if someone was going, you'd be like, yeah, you could go there, but also these places are cool too.
There's a lot. I mean,
yeah.
I think at one point, like, I think it's like 10 of the best clubs in the world were in Berlin at one point. You know, I mean, well, there's a lot of famous venues there. There's, you know, you got Berghain, and then like Tresor, and Tresor was like the first like real, like successful Berlin techno club. And basically, the guys from Detroit left Detroit, went to Berlin as the wall was falling, and basically brought techno to Berlin.
Wow.
And so Tresor is like I don't know. That's like to me that's the real church, more so than Berghain is. And then yeah, you've got Watergate, and Watergate, you know, they've been around for forever. Like they're around, I think they opened like 2002 or 2003. And they used to do like a lot of different stuff. They did like, you know, like drum and bass and like house and techno. And there's a bunch of like famous artists that like have come out of Watergate, like Solomon, for example, got big there. Marco Resman, you know, got big there. Heidi, Teeny. So, yeah, I mean, that place is an institution within itself. And then you have my personal favorite that I like to take people to is actually this place called Golden Gate. And it is like the grungiest, nastiest little hole in the wall you've ever been. But the music is good, and like the entire atmosphere is like, there's like, you know how people say like, oh, you know, the club, like I like to go to spots with like, they don't focus on like VIP and the aesthetic.
Yeah.
This is like the extreme opposite of that. I mean, you walk in, they have like the beer cases for the bar, like stacked up in the corner for like the empty cases. It smells like rotten beer in there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the you walk into the dance floor. It's a tiny dance floor, maybe only like twice the size of this room we're in right now. You go upstairs, there's like a bathroom. It's like a unisex bathroom. The toilets flood all the time. The toilets will like literally like there's like a layer of like water on the floor.
On the
there.
floor? Oh my God.
And then that rolls down the stairs. The ceilings are so low that when it gets hot in there, like people's sweat it like goes up on the ceiling and like drops back down again.
Oh my God. Sweat stalactites.
It's like a frat house damn near.
Dude, it is wild.
But that's the charm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's like nobody, you could go in there like dressed as a fucking banana and like nobody would give a shit.
Be like,
you know?
nice, what's up?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, yeah.
you're gonna be hot.
Like it's just yeah, it's like no bare bones. You're there for the music. Like you can take whatever you want. Everybody's on something. You know, everybody's minding their own business. They're on their own space. They're only there to dance and like listen to music. And that's typically the spot that when I have friends that come to Berlin for the first time, that's kind of like where I take them to break them in. It's like, you know, we're not going to Watergate. You're going here. We're going straight to the deep end.
Yeah. And then you can progress back to, you know, something you said is just like institution, which I feel like that's more prevalent in Europe. Like, where do we have institutions here as much? It doesn't, I don't know. It feels more captured by
Smart Bar is basically the only one.
In Chicago.
No, in the whole country.
You think?
And there's like, it's a fact.
Really?
Yeah.
I love Smart Bar. It's a great club.
It's the oldest existing like house music club in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
What about the Warehouse or prior Warehouse?
Well, I mean, the prior Warehouse closed in...
But it closed.
Yeah, in 83. So, and then they opened in 83. So...
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk like Smart Bar history a little bit, because I don't know that much about it, but I just have loved the shows that I've gone to there.
I mean, don't quote me on this. I just know that like Joe Shanahan, who's the owner, had like, and he owns Metro as well. Had a connection to the Warehouse. And I think I saw somewhere that he was like one of the sound techs or something. And then, you know, when the Warehouse closed, they went and opened up Smart Bar. I know like Joe Smooth was one of the founders of house music. Kind of like worked with, you know, Joe to open that place up, or did something along those lines. Talent Buying did something. That's also where, was it the Blessed Madonna kind of came out of. Was it Eris Drew came out of Smart Bar. Alinka, now you've got Garrett David, you know, and it's just one of those places where like if you're playing there, you know, I think they do a good job of nurturing their residents, and then like a lot of their residents basically, you know, go on to do big things around the world.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like this would be an interesting point to kind of switch to the Warehouse and what's going on with that. Maybe even go into some of the history of the old spot before it closed. I mean, if you're familiar with it. Yeah. I mean, that is like technically where house music was birthed, or like, can we say that?
I mean, yeah, essentially. Yep.
Yeah.
That's where it came from.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like you have a heavy role now in the new Warehouse. What was it called, the Warehouse before?
It was, but that was like its like colloquial name. It was something. It was called.
We can maybe look
it was
it
called.
up
It was
too.
called like something Studios.
Studio 54.
Now it had like another like name, but then like the name for that party night became the Warehouse.
Gotcha. Like, oh, are you going to the Warehouse? Like, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
So that was kind of like how that happened. Yeah.
And do we know why it ultimately closed?
There was a number of reasons. One, they think the St. Michael's or St. Patrick's Church around the corner opened up. And then I think there was like an issue with the floorboards, like the floors need to be reinforced or something like this. And then that's why, you know, whenever that happened, like Robert shut that down, and then he went down to basically Cermak and Michigan Avenue and opened up like the first, you know, music box. And that's where like Ron Hardy, you know, kind of got famous.
Mace was telling me a little bit about that. So the music box, not the one on Southport that plays movies.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is a different club.
Yeah, so the Music Box was the second venue from Robert Williams.
And Robert Williams kind of was like the guy who was putting on these house venues.
Yeah, so Robert was the original owner of the Warehouse, and then when they closed, he went and like Frankie Knuckles left and opened Power Plant, and then Robert went and opened the Music Box, and I believe there was actually like two versions of that. Even there was one down in like Michigan Avenue, South Michigan Avenue, and then there was one that was like underneath like Lower Michigan, I believe. And then that's where Ron Hardy, kind of got big from this version, and then from that. Like, basically, right after that point, like, everything kind of exploded, and that's when, like, Dave Medusa opened up Medusa's, and Smart Bar opened up as well.
Medusa's. Isn't Medusa's closing?
Yep. It's been closed.
It's been closed,
And
okay.
was, I think, Dave, like recently passed away as well. Yeah.
Damn. R.I.P.
Yep.
Wow. So, yeah, even just to get a little lay of the land of, like, some of these original clubs is really interesting because, again, I mean, we have cool venues in Chicago, like big ones like Radius and the Salt Shed now. But again, like I feel like those are very much captured by like the powers of the music industry.
There's, like, there's literally like one company that owns like 80% of the venues in the city.
Yeah, and they've been like rebranded too. Like before it was like React, like the Mid. Could we call the Mid an institution? The Mid was like definitely.
I mean, I can't. I have no say in the matter. I was never at the Mid.
You never went to the Mid?
I never went to the Mid. Like when
Okay.
I moved here, the Mid had closed.
Yeah.
I know people talk about like Crowbar a lot, and then the Mid, but I unfortunately never got to experience those.
Yeah.
I only knew about Crowbar because I know they started opening up a bunch of Crowbars around the world.
But yeah, I mean, so like I guess to bring it back to the institution aspect, like the new warehouse, the warehouse. I'm sure that's the goal.
What do you mean?
Like, I guess I just want to get into like what kind of are the goals for the new place, and what is like the overall reason for bringing it back.
So yeah, one of the reasons, I'll start with the reason why, and then we'll talk about the goals.
Goals, yeah.
Essentially, what happened with the warehouse is. This kind of goes back. This story goes back to like 2020, during the pandemic, and then during the like George Floyd protests. I had actually like originally, everything kind of slowed down, and then I was like, myself and a bunch of other people, and I was like, wait a second, like why are there no people of color like headlining shows in a genre they create? It's like going to a hip hop concert and there's like no black people.
Yeah, it's just white dudes.
It's just Mac Miller, like Mac Miller, the whole lineup. Also R.I.P. to Mac Miller. He was like fucking great, but
yeah, no hate, but
but you know what I'm getting at. It would look weird, and it's not that there's like it's not even like proportional to like the population. It's like I don't know, out of like 30 shows, it's like one. And yeah, I mean, I was actually like working with like Junior Sanchez, Seth Troxler, Kevin Knapp, and Kay Alexi, and Demure. We had like a little like group chat, and we were trying to like basically like analyze the problem and what can we do to like within our community and within the people that we know to like influence things in a direction that is more sustainable and more inclusive. And, I was, we were talking about like, okay, is it like a visibility issue? Is it like a finance issue? Is it, the fact that like, people of color don't see themselves like, represented in this music, and that's why they're not making this music and participating in the scene? Is it a racial issue? And we were kind of like going through everything and kind of like, everybody was trying to like basically do something. And I mean, for the most part, like, I was at Demure and Junior Sanchez ended up starting a label called Culture that I've released a lot of stuff on. And then, was it like Seth was talking about, like doing like a radio show as well to do some like educational stuff. And that's when he also did this like thing with like Cornel West. And, I think like a lot of these guys, I know this is definitely the case for Seth, but like kind of realize like the more you talk about like racial injustice in the scene, like you get a lot of pushback.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like people freak out, like, you know, and they'll like cancel your shows. They won't want to put you on. They want to work with you. Like the total opposite of what the scene says they stand for. Like they just like react in a crazy way. So, that was one of the barriers I kind of noticed that, like, you know, it's like, okay, well, we have to do something that can basically overcome the gaslighting. You know, how do we do it in a way where it's not a bunch of, like, you know, rich corporate white dudes, like, just hand-picking and tokenizing, you know, which black people they think are acceptable and they can sell. You know, what can we do to kind of give the power back to the community and platform the right people? And so, yeah, I basically said, like, hey, you know, what would happen if we just brought back the warehouse? You know, and we'd have enough, like, backing and the institution if we get Robert behind it. You know, there's nobody that can really kind of like gaslight you or say that your narrative is incorrect, especially when it's coming from, you know, the communities that were there from the beginning and from the get-go. And yeah, we knew that this was something that I could get, you know, we can get a lot of money behind, you know, and like get funding for. And I realized that's kind of like the element that was really missing, is like it's more of like a like social economic issue, and it's more of like a, you know, how do you say this, like a like systemic issue. Than it is like, you know, I don't know, some dude wearing a pointy white hat and saying, I just don't want any blackies on my lineups. You know, that's not how it is.
It's more just that they've been almost conditioned to be like, well, this is what's going to make me money.
Yeah.
Or so, you know,
I call this industry brainworms, like, is what this is. Like they're especially now that the economy is the way it is, like people and promoters are like more and more risk adverse. And this is also what you're kind of seeing within the industry as well. It's like turning into this point where, you know, before you had a good track, right? And you would take this track. It's like
you put it on SoundCloud,
you know,
and like that would actually work.
Or you put it, you know, you signed it to some label, let's say like Hot Creations or, you know, whatever. Like you signed it to some big label, and then that label, being associated with that label, that would get you bookings. Because people were doing that. That's where people used to be doing their discovery. So the emphasis was on the label itself to promote the artist, promote the music, and basically share their audience with you and grow artists. And now with like the whole social media thing, you know, they realize, well, we can avoid all risk.
Yeah.
Why don't we just wait for these guys to build up their own gigantic following?
Right.
And then sign them. So the emphasis is no longer on the music. It's, you know, if I sign this guy, will he make a bunch of sales for us? And if I put this person on, is it guaranteed that he's bringing his own crowd with him that will sell tickets? So promoters aren't really promoting anymore. They're just like buying parties.
Yeah. Right. Like, because, nah, dude, you got to go out there and like build up your network before we're just going to put money into it.
It's kind of like...
this has been a theme that's been coming up a lot. Just
it feels... And it's not just in dance music. It's like in the corporate world as well. Like... You know,
you have to be this startup that like, oh, the numbers look good, let's put venture capitalist money into it.
Yeah,
like, kind of like that.
Yeah, that's how. And like, I mean, it's like applying for an entry level position that requires like 5 years of experience. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's like the floor has kind of been taken out of, like, you know, before there was like a ladder that you could climb, and you can clearly see, like, if I do this and do this, this kind of like gets you to this point. And now it's like there's a hole, and you need like a jetpack to get to the top.
Like if you want to, do you know what blitz scaling is? It's like this basically like technique. I'm not going to explain this very well, but like where you just pump a lot of money into a company like Uber or something. They just pump a lot of money into it. And like they're overall, whatever, like the money that they're in the red.
Yeah.
But they're hoping that at one point they can turn that around.
Yeah.
But
this isn't sustainable.
So like you could do the same thing with your own personal brand or whatever, like you're trying to promote. You could put a lot of money into it, and then
that's literally what people are doing. Oh,
yeah.
Shit.
Oh, careful.
I'm clumsy as hell.
Do you need like a towel or anything?
This is why I wear all black. Nobody knows.
yeah, that's true. So also we can get you more if you want.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Probably.
So yeah, it's like you could choose to do that. But anyway, so yeah, you were saying that it's like a financial, socio-economic issue more
Yes.
so. So I guess I'm curious too, like funding, you said you could get funding for it. Where does this backing come from? Is this from like your group of people and connections that you know, or is it like reaching out to Chicago, like whatever?
I used to work in tech, and I also used to work for, like, when I was living in Berlin, one of the things I was doing besides like DJing and doing other stuff is I worked as like an agent for a little while. I told you that I was also like working with other like nightclubs and like helping them build like their businesses up to, you know, have like a, you know, like a business plan and teach them about different markets and how to like pursue certain markets and create like a niche and then, you know, invest within a niche to like kind of grow a brand. I would put this together for venues. And by doing this, I realized that there's like kind of like how the funding options for venues work, whether it's like getting money from liquor brands to have to carry their product on the bar, or to can you get social funds, you know, like from the government, or what do your numbers have to look like before you can get loans, this, that, and the other. How do you attract investors? What kind of investors are actually interested in doing anything in nightlife, given the volatility of like, you know, like nightlife and nightclubs in general. I mean, there's like a certain type of investor that invests in, you know, these type of things. And yeah, I mean, I basically just took that knowledge and just kind of like applied it to what we're doing now. And I realized, okay, like, well, you know, what investors want to see is they want to see that, one, there's like a brand, or there's like a product that if it got money could, you know, have success relatively quickly.
Right.
You know, and then for us, it's like, okay, well, like the warehouse, you know, is already kind of like established as a brand that's like worldwide. It's got its own Wikipedia page. It's got documentaries about it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's very, it's like, it doesn't take much, like as far as like marketing to, you know, to have people recognize what that brand is. So you've already like knocked down that first barrier of, you know, can you prove that this brand has value?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, then from there, it, you know, came down to a lot of, like basically like Excel sheets, making different numbers and like pro formas and stuff, and kind of making things make sense financially, and then presenting that to the right people, and then just doing a lot of, you know, talking and finding out like deals that work for everybody.
I mean, I don't know exactly if you can talk about everything, and
I can't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I'm being a little vague on purpose.
Yeah. Are there any specific partnerships or things that you can talk about at this point, or are we just gonna have to wait to see?
I don't think that like some of that stuff, I mean, is really like something that we're ever really gonna like share completely. I mean, we have like a finance guy that works with us. He's an economist, and he's also one of the business owners of the company, along with myself and Robert Williams. And, you know, he's very, very good at like, you know, like doing like fundraising, this and the other. He kind of knows the entire system as far as, you know, getting social funding, getting, you know, he's got a network of like some like rich friends, so he can like crowd fund things. And he himself is also like independently, you know, wealthy. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like who we worked with to kind of get the financial stuff.
Yeah.
We've had some talks with the city coming up. We've already been talking to the city and the cultural board about like, you know, certain funds, getting help from them. Like there's no, that's still kind of like playing out right now, but
yeah,
they're definitely interested in like working with us in some sort of capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not trying to like probe here. It's just something that I'm very curious about, like how you go about doing these things, and
whole lot of shaking hands and talking and selling. Mm-hmm. I literally like have shook more hands and like gave more pitches than a politician or a used car salesman. Put it that way.
Yeah,
it's like just really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really selling somebody on like an idea, and then having that financially make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Can you sell me the idea right now, if that makes sense? I mean, I'm on board. I love like what you guys are doing. I think it's going to help, especially Chicago's culture quite a bit. Because, I mean, to your point, even from me, just as kind of a house music fan, somebody who goes to shows, I've been less and less impressed lately of just who's coming on lineups. It's big names. It's people that you kind of enjoy listening to. I'm going to go see Honey Dijon coming up here in December. I can't wait. But a lot of it does feel like it's just what you'd call the TikTok techno. So Warehouse is trying to be something different. You know, what does that different look like? Why, why does Chicago need this now?
So my thing is I think Chicago has some of the like greatest DJs and producers, like, and this is coming from Berlin, that I've ever seen. You know, you've got guys that are like playing like back deck parties like behind their house, and like they're mixing tracks together.
Partios? That actually
like
is like a good, I like that.
Yeah.
Like a patio party?
Yeah, basically.
Partio?
Partios.
Partio.
I think I just like ran those two words together and invented a word, but
that's good. I
let's
like
roll-
it.
let's
Yeah.
roll with it. But yeah, no, I mean, like you see these guys and you're like, damn, this dude's good. And like, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know, I'm somebody, you know, where like, I think I'm good. So when I hear like, you know, other people, or I hear people, like, I'm very like, you know, if I think it's,
You're critical.
I'm not afraid to say something's objectively bad if it's objectively bad. I'm not saying that the person's like incapable of being good, but it just ain't there right now. And there's like a lot of people that I've heard, and it's like too many to name even, where I was like, yo, like if this person had like, you know, like a platform, this person would like get big. Like they're good, you know. And I think that's like, you know, something that's like in the culture here in Chicago. You know, I think like, you know, if you look at the way the mayor ran, even like the mayor was like literally running with like, you know, he's doing stuff with like Ron Carroll and a bunch of other people, and like promoting himself as mayor through house music. And I feel like Chicago has always been sort of like the you know, in German say like Sprungpunkt, like the jumping board. Is that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, for a lot of like big social movements, and like, you know, the labor unions were started here. You know, most of the civil rights movement started here. A lot of like, you know, women's suffrage movements got big here, and Chicago's always been that part where the place where like things kind of like pop off. And you know, I see this now with like, you know, the culture basically being, you know, whitewashed to how it is and packaged up all nice to be commodified for the masses, which is great. But I think what you're leaving behind then is like a lot of people who actually do care about real Chicago house music. They don't want to hear like some cheesy tech house edits. They want to be at a party where people aren't on their phones. You know, they want, you know,
that's like a whole other issue. But yes, I agree.
Like, you know, and so they want to be in places where like the art and the music comes first, and like the theatrics is like an afterthought.
Yeah, I feel like an unfortunate thing is like when you guys open, everyone's just gonna be like, dude, look where I am, look at this.
Probably,
which is probably helpful at a certain point.
You know, I've actually thought about this. I was like, oh, should we do like a no phone ban? And this is like something that I'm actually like kind of like,
that would be cool.
Playing around with
kind of
my
like
head.
the comedy clubs, how they have these like
Yeah.
it's a little bit riskier because a comedian.
I mean, at the same time, I don't want to, you know, it's like, I think it's a factor of like, I don't want to be like Berghain. I don't want to be like where we're sticking stickers on people's phones and saying like, you can take any pictures of everything that's going on in here. Like, it's too crazy for the world to experience. And I don't think our goal is to be more, instead of like exclusive, like being rapidly inclusive, like they're doing the opposite. And I think the only caveat is when you're being inclusive that you got to make sure that you're creating like a safe space for that original like crowd. I think what a lot of people do, they put these little posters up like, you know, racial discrimination, this and the other is not like allowed or tolerated in a club whatsoever. And you know, have some like dude that's like walking around in there with like a MAGA hat on or some shit like this. Not like literally, but like, you know, it's like, okay, well, like
it's not actually doing anything.
You're not actually even cultivating a crowd that is tolerant. There is you a lot of venues don't really stand for anything. They're just kind of like, everything's very, you know, it's
like
very.
we can't kick him out until he like breaks a rule,
I mean,
right?
yeah,
Like, or
and that's how they just don't. I get it. You know, times are tough, and you got to like take every dollar you can get, and that's why people, you know, they've packaged house music up in this way to make it where, you know, they can get people through the door. They can only focus on like selling tickets, and they don't want to turn or offend anybody because they have this idea of like house music being a place for everybody in all ideologies. But I think the problem with that, it's kind of like a fallacy. It's like, okay, well, if you're being tolerant of intolerance, are you really being tolerant?
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
That's what you're saying, yeah.
And so I think it's one of those things where if you are very outwardly expressive of like what you stand for, where you stand, what community means to you, what this space means to you, I think those people just aren't going to come to begin with. And I think you're going to get a lot of people who maybe don't feel safe or don't feel welcome at these venues, that they're going to come on over. And I think that's something that like Smart Bar has actually done like really, really well. Like they don't, like, they don't let the douchebags in. Like, you can tell who's like a dick. It's not
the bouncers actually at Smart Bar are pretty fierce.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
You kind of, you have to, if you're working on a door like that, you kind of have to, give this allure that like, don't fuck with me.
Yeah. So I mean, that's actually an interesting conversation about being a bouncer and like how you used to be a bouncer. Let's get into that really quick, because like, I mean, there's a couple. First question we'll stay on the warehouse is like, is there any type of curation or attitude that you want the bouncers to have? Have you thought about that?
Yeah. This is something that I feel about like all door staff. I think that all door staff should be firm but polite.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to. I don't think it's. I mean, sometimes you have this like in Berghain. This is one of my turnoffs. Is like you don't have to be arrogant. You can tell somebody like, hey, like for example, I'll tell you right now, like at the warehouse, like one of the things that I think is like we're definitely not going to do any like dudes rolling up like they just like left a business meeting. I'm gonna be like, okay.
So business casual.
Yeah,
business,
go home, put some sneakers on, come back like you're here to dance.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna say like oh well, because you showed up in a button-up shirt that you're never allowed to back in. Like that's like equally ridiculous, because you're just like judging somebody before you got to get to know them. But at the same time, I do want to make sure that like the dance floor and the venue himself is like, I want to break down those like class barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And and so if you can kind of like avoid like excessive displays of wealth like in the venue, I think it makes it easier for people within the venue to feel comfortable with one another and kind of like, get to know one another.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, that's what these spaces are about anyways. It's about breaking down barriers, meeting new people, but the objective is to move society in a progressive direction, not to have some sort of acceptance for some MAGA Chad who like thinks discriminating against like, Latinos or gay people somehow. Oh, just my opinion, man. It's like, well, your opinion is I
mean, I feel like
of hate. So,
and I feel like after a certain amount of time, like, like the people that go to this club will have a certain amount of pride for it. And if like that attitude, if someone comes in rolling with that attitude, it's like, bro, you're not going to stay here long. Like people are going to call you out. So, I mean, hopefully that's something you can cultivate.
Yeah. And like I said, like, I don't want to, I don't want people, these kind of, even these people, it's like, I rather they like educate themselves and change their mind and like start becoming more tolerant of people. But I mean, I don't want to like, put people in a situation where they have to be around like, because that's what this, I mean, that's what the warehouse was from its inception was about. The disco demolition happened. That was, let's call that what it is. It was a homophobic and racial attack.
No, though it was, I forget the exact characters and whatnot, but it was some
radio guy,
a DJ, like a radio DJ. What happened?
He was basically like pissed off that, he was a rock DJ, and he was pissed off that disco was taking over the airwaves, and it was kind of, he felt entitled to better time slots and this, that, and the other. And so they organized this like disco demolition day at Kaminsky Park where, they basically invited, people to come in and bring their, their disco records, and they were going to blow them up. It was like a double header.
Yeah.
So they were going to like blow them up in between the two, like the game. And, obviously
such a crazy idea. Like, how did they green light that?
This was literally like the owner's son who like
Okay, well, there's a little bit of nepotism going on.
Yeah, I wonder how, I mean, like, yeah, it's like I feel like this is like green lighting like a Michael Bay film, you know what I mean? Like, who let you do this? And yeah, so that's what happened. But you know, let's you know, everybody knows about the, you know, racial historical context of Bridgeport and what Bridgeport used to be back in those days. So I mean, you do like a anti-disco party a lot, you know, in Kaminsky Park in Bridgeport, you're gonna attract a lot of red hat energy, and that's what showed up. And it turned into you know, not just like blowing up disco records because they simply like subjectively weren't into disco music. It's because like, you know, they were, you know, like they didn't like gay people, and the idea of disco music represented something that politically they felt like they couldn't identify with. And you know, that's kind of where this like rock music is white music kind of thing started happening as well. And yeah, I mean, it was nothing short of like a race riot. I mean, like Vince Lawrence is one of the Chicago OGs, was working as like an usher there, and even said like, you know, he was like scared for his life.
Yeah, that sounds like a terrifying. I've seen footage and stuff, and it's like, jeez.
So from this, you know, that's when they opened the warehouse to basically provide a safe space for these people. And it was actually like Mayor Daley that actually like helped them, oddly enough, open this place up. Robert had worked with like the government, you know, to create a safe space. And so that's always what it was. It was always about, you know, acceptance and, you know, moving society forward through, you know, allowing everybody in, but everybody in that is tolerant of one another and creating tolerance and breaking down those barriers.
So that's what I think is going to be like healthy for you guys, is you are creating a venue where going into it, you already know what you're trying to curate. And I feel like places when you're opening up, generally you kind of know what you're trying to do. We're going to be, you know, top of the line bottle service kind of club, or we're going to be kind of, you know, $20 at the door, not going to be the nicest but you guys are really focused on the inclusion side of it and making sure that it's a safe space, because like that's the overarching theme you hear in documentaries about house music was it started with black people and with gay people. And it really was just a big kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but almost like, you know, a counterculture kind of thing in a way.
Yeah, I always say that like house music was punk rock as fuck.
Yeah.
that's basically same thing with techno. Like it was also a counterculture movement, you know, if you think about it, like there's a quote from Frankie Knuckles actually, and it says like disco or house music was disco's revenge. You know, they took disco from us. Well, watch this. We're going to take these disco records and we're going to chop them up and, you know, sample them and then put this like 4/4 drum machine on and include new technology and innovate in a way that, you know, you thought you could push us out. Well, watch, we'll just re-innovate and we'll make something new. You know, and in a way it was kind of like a gigantic like middle finger to the system. And so to me, I don't know, that's punk rock. You know?
Yeah.
You know, and even back then, like the hip hop, same thing with hip hop, like, you know, had the same, literally hip hop and house music actually have they started at the same time and have the exact same origin. I mean, actually the only difference between hip hop and house music is, besides the 4/4, you know, like drum format, is the section of the track that they sample. So within a disco track, you're going to get like the groove, the rolling groove section of it. And with hip hop, it was the break.
Oh, yeah.
So they just like, you know, sampled different, you know, they gravitated towards different parts of like, you know, like sampling.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what made, you know, like breaks and hip hop.
Right. Yeah. Versus 4 on the floor.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't realize that there was timeline wise, like the same,
literally the exact same time for the exact same reasons.
And we heard this at the panel that you spoke at last week too. Hip hop took off in way more into the mainstream than house music did. For I think what she was saying was like, because it was like interesting lyrics, right, about like gangbanging and things like that. I mean, how do you feel about that? I didn't really, I was not nearly alive at that point, so.
I mean, if you listen to like, you know, the old, like hip hop stuff from like the Like if you listen to stuff from the 80s, like the Run DMC and Grandmaster Flash, and a lot of that's like b-boy music.
Yeah.
And so from b-boy music, it kind of became like hip hop. And that's when you had like, you know, the Wu-Tangs, the Tribes, you know, kind of like, was it the MF Dooms kind of came out of this like, you know, mentality as well. And that was like lyricism, that we're gonna speak truth to power. We're gonna talk about socioeconomic issues. We're gonna talk about what's going on in the streets. We're gonna talk about, you know, what's happening. And then from there, you know, I know a lot of people know this, like you know, like Wu-Tang and like Tribe and all these guys, when they first started off, like they weren't really making a lot of money. Like Nas, all these dudes. And it wasn't until like the mid 90s with like the West Coast stuff. And that's one of the reasons why Biggie went over to the West Coast, because there's this like, that's where all the big labels were and that's where the money was. You know, they started getting into it and ended up putting a lot of money into it. And once, what she was referring to in the thing was, the major labels basically they put a lot of money behind gangster rap, basically. So you had like a lot of like gang members and stuff like this that were, you know, individual guys in the gang were, you know, and you still see this now with like drill music and stuff.
Yeah.
You'll have like a guy in the gang that can rap, and then they'll like literally take some of the money that they're making from, you know, pushing drugs or doing whatever they're doing, putting behind this guy, you know, help him get his records going, this, that, and the other. And that's when, you know, the majors basically saw like, okay, well, this is an opportunity for us to make money, you know?
Yeah. And then there's the whole East versus West Coast thing, which just like feel like war. People make money during war times.
That was also fueled by the music industry. Mm-hmm. If you go and look at like the stories between like, you know, Biggie and Tupac, for example, like Death Row was like literally like pitting them against each other.
Yeah.
Intentionally, because, you know,
hype.
Exactly. So it's like selling a boxing match, basically. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, that obviously turned like real deadly once you start taking gangs from one group and telling them they hate the other group, and then now the second these guys say each other, you know, that you know, that's how the shooting started. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of deep history with this stuff, which is good. I'm glad we get into it on this, because I know a lot of it, but then you bring in certain points that I'm like, okay.
There's a lot of unspoken history about Chicago and house music where, I mean, people I talk to, even producers these days, didn't know that it really came from here. I mean, our circle generally does, but
yeah, we hang out with cool people.
Yeah, I know what's up, but like a lot of people like don't know, especially people who aren't really initiated into dance music. They kind of just hear what they hear from friends and whatever, don't really know that there's a lot of history behind it.
And this is one of the things where like I'm super happy that like electronic music is at the peak where it's at right now, because it means like everybody can get paid. We can do things in a sustainable way that benefit artists and can benefit the scene overall. But the problem is like, especially like post-pandemic, is there's like a lot of new people have come in. Their only understanding of this music is like what they're seeing on TikTok and Instagram videos, and literally all of that is like faked.
Or like, what is like, how do you make a house track? You know what I mean? Without understanding kind of the origins of it. Like, you can figure out how to make a house track in like 10 minutes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's not too terribly difficult.
Yeah, or like how to make a tech house track. Like, that's what they're DJing. Mm-hmm. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is people now, the discovery kind of works like this. They see the stuff on like social media, and they're like, oh wow, this is hot. Like, you know, people are really into this. And then from that, they obviously get interested in a certain percentage of those people who see it, then want to like obviously do it themselves or start going to the shows and participating. And they think it's just like club music, dance music. And I think one of the biggest things that the industry has like done that's kind of like screwed things up is the fact that they don't want to talk about the origins of how this stuff came along, because again, it's like so political. When you add politics to things, it like is divisive and it pushes people away. Mm-hmm. So they're intentionally, for financial gain, dumbing things down, removing any existence of any sort of, like political movement or counterculture from the music completely, to turn it into like this like celebrity culture.
Yeah. I mean, that's something, I was curious what you think. Like, if you're a producer do you feel like it should be kind of mandatory to do your research and get that origin story? Like, can you live in a vacuum and not care about that and still add to the scene? Like, if you make really good house music and you don't know anything about the origin, like, does that, you know what I mean? Because it's kind of, let's just, like me, I came into electronic music because I was listening to like UKF on YouTube. Didn't know anything about the culture, and now have learned a lot about it. But that was the point that I had to get into it. So I'm kind of thankful that, I mean, it's a little different with dubstep and like drum and bass, but what do you think of that? That if you just solely produced in like a vacuum and didn't know any of the history?
I mean, you can't know until you learn. Mm-hmm. So I don't like, to me, anybody who's coming into the genre and is interested in the music, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
What I think is the way I view what we're doing is at least trying to, like, you know, put enough information out there that it's accessible so that there is at least an informed consumer.
And also I was talking about people producing, so that's like a totally different love.
But I mean, it's like the same thing, even for the producers, you know, like people, there's no test you have to take to buy Ableton. And
yeah. And that'd be a bad society. We don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. I want to make it as easy as possible, actually, for people to get into production and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But I think it's the duty of like the venues to like storytell a little bit better. Explain, you know, where the music comes from, or when they book a certain artist, what have they done? And I think there's a way to promote shows and promote artists in a way that doesn't just require like showing 15-second videos with a packed room with everybody having their hands up. Mm-hmm. I mean, because if you think about it, like, you know, any, like, let's say you take somebody's like Boiler Room clip or a Circle or whatever clip they're using to like sell it, like all you're selling people is dopamine at that point. Like, oh, look, so many people love this. This is going to be a wild show. But nobody's really talking about.
That's a big aha moment, actually. Like, I never thought about it that way, but you kind of are, right? You're like, here's why you come to this party. Look at all these people having fun.
Exactly.
Well, and then they'll also use clips from like Circle, whatever, Boiler Room, to promote the DJ that's going to be at this different venue. And it's like, well, that's a completely different context too.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that's like I said, that's all fine and dandy, and it's great. Like, you know, show them that this person's established and they're playing these circles and these Boiler Rooms and doing that kind of stuff. But I think at the same time, there should be more communication and marketing around what has this person done, who have they worked with, and why is that significant? Mm-hmm. You know, and I would say most artists anyways are going to like eventually stumble onto like the origins of the music, where it all came from, this and the other. I don't really know too many like DJs and producers that don't know what the warehouse is.
I have no idea. Well,
I mean,
okay, yeah.
I've met a few, but it's like, this is like actually the minority. Mm-hmm. So I don't really think that's necessarily like for the artist side of things, like an issue.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like it's only natural to be like, wait, where did this come from? Why am I doing this? Like, if you didn't, there would be such a disconnect almost in like your wiring.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I don't even care.
I mean, yeah, those people exist too. The, you know, I just like, oh, this makes money. Let's do this. Fuck everything else kind of thing. But, mm-hmm. you know, I like to call those like the entertainers.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's one of those things where, you know, if you think about it, like nothing happens in a vacuum. There's a reason why we've gotten to this place we're at right now within the scene that has everybody so disgruntled and wanting more. And you really see this from like a lot of venues and a lot of promoters. Like they're like, okay, well, you know, the kids want this and they're into this stuff. So how do we like market it? But then they don't really kind of like know how, because they don't, like, a lot of these guys don't come from, they don't have that like cultural frame of reference. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of like, you know, I made the joke, you know, about a certain, you know, big festival in Chicago. I was making the joke that there's like more, you know, people of color and gay people and like the marketing than there is like on the lineups. You know, it's like they know that they have to educate. They know that this is where it comes from. But then it kind of comes off as like you're just trying to like commodify that again. Like they don't know any better. Like they only know what they know. It's like, okay, well, how can we do this and make this like profit us, instead of like, well, why don't you just start doing it? You know, it's weird.
And I feel like a lot of it gets lost too, because that music is still like, even if it's being looked over, there's still genuine good music in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would say probably half the people on said festival lineup, like, I could probably take it or leave it. There were only a couple of people that I was like, oh, fuck. And it comes down to personal preference. But,
Yeah.
I mean, the bummer is just, and I get it, it's a business. You have to sell tickets. But when that starts driving the reasons for what you're doing to, you know, book and push the culture forward and then claim that you're doing good things for it, it's inauthentic, you know.
And no pressure to that, you know. In their defense, it's what they're doing is also not easy, you know. It's one of those
there's
things,
like things that need to be cut out or whatever. Yeah,
you know, they are also operating within the constraints of a capitalistic society. Math is still math.
yeah, for sure. And they're going big with it. Festival, 3-day festival.
Yeah. So, you know, the main reason why I'm critical, so hypercritical of them, is because of the fact that, you know, like, they are so big, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of power there.
And with power comes, like, you know, let's do the Peter Parker analogy. With great power comes great responsibility.
And the whole, like, power corrupts absolutely type of thing, where it's like, you got a little too much power and now you're not doing the right thing.
And that's more of an issue with monopolies.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the problem with, like, the Insomniacs and the Live Nations is they're not really even entertainment companies anymore. They're like real estate companies.
There's not even a nucleus, you know what I mean? It's just like, we can all make money somehow, just do this random task.
Well, what they do is, the business model for them is to actually just like own all the real estate and own all the market share.
Yeah.
And when you own all the market share and you're spending millions of dollars with one agency, it also like creates like a conflict of interest and like an integrity issue among like even agencies, because I don't know if you know this, like, booking agents work largely on commission. And so, I don't know, when you got some big promoter and like what's typically, even though Chicago's like populous, like a small market, who's, you know, lining your pockets and keeping your artist book and keeping you in good standing, you're most likely going to defend your like breadwinner. Mm-hmm. And then for people like us to come along and say like, whoa, we're doing something different, but we'd still like to book your artist, you kind of have to approach it in a different way, because like they're going to be like, okay, well, why am I going to potentially ruin my relationship with a person that's giving me $15,000+ in commission fees a month? I've never made so much money in my life, to go with you and then maybe lose out on like booking more talent. Then you're never going to be booking as much talent as like promoter XYZ. You know.
So are there going to be like some battles then? You expect? Like, are you expecting some like real challenges here to what you guys are doing?
I'm sure they'll probably run interference, but I mean, I don't want to like sound cocky, but like I'm like 20 steps ahead of this dude.
Okay.
So
I'd love to hear that.
Like we're honestly competing for a market that like he doesn't even know is aware exists.
So yeah, I feel like this is the biggest power that you have in it, is the curation ability to curate like your bouncer or curate who you bring into the venue to play. Like, that is the biggest thing, as long as you don't like, basically what would like, you could go the dark route and just be like, what's going to make us the most money? And then that would fuck it up. Yeah. But you know, it doesn't sound like you have a vested interest in that, at least at the moment.
I mean, literally, like, when, you know, speaking of like that, when I started working with some of our investors, period, one of the hardest parts was finding investors that were willing to stick to those guidelines.
Yeah.
That were not gonna, you know, take buyout money, or that were not gonna chase the easy money, that were not gonna sell out. And it's like, because I was like, really, if you think about it, if you do sell out, like, you'll just be a flash in the pan. You'll be the same as everybody else. You'll be doing the exact same everything else. Now you're competing for the same artist as promoter XYZ, and they will then run interference because now you're literally fucking with their money.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's best to just kind of like stay in our own lane and do our own thing.
Yeah.
And then build that. And I think that's like more sustainable. I think if you focus more on like this is one of the things I learned in Berlin, and that a lot of people in the States don't do. It's if you, as a venue or a promoter, focus on your brand, the warehouse, or your party, or your concept, and you always want to make sure that like your brand is bigger than even the biggest artist you're putting on. That, let's say, even if we book a Honey Dijon, well, you know that, well, Honey Dijon playing at the warehouse is now something more interesting. You know that you're going to get something else. That it's not just a concert where she's going to play for X amount of, whatever, because of like everything that the brand that we've built around it, this, that, and the other. And the venue, that's why you want to be there. Honey being there is the cherry on top.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to get to the point where, like, I don't have to even announce who's playing and people come.
You show up and it's just a Derek Carter night all night or something. Or
whatever,
whatever. Yeah.
It's like, creating enough trust with people that that like every time that they know when they come to your venue that it's going to be good all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That they know that you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's and you've done all the digging, because I want to get to the point where I can introduce people they've never heard of. People that have maybe 20 social media followers, but this guy's like a freak,
Yeah.
And, and be able to like use that platform to, I don't know, create like a little bit of like a meritocracy where the people who are objectively good or are artists or very unique that they can shine.
Mm-hmm. Have you thought specifically about like actually telling people and like just straight to their face, like this is the history, or do you think the education comes through just like this is a sick place and now I want to know more about it, or do you think there'll be a little bit of both?
So we're actually working with like Ron Trent and a couple other people on like some kind of like cultural stuff as well. I think that's like one of the other like important things. I mean, I'll tell you this, like in the building that we're looking at, there's more than enough space for a venue plus other things within inside the venue. And one of the things that we want to do is also put the Chicago House Music Museum like inside.
Oh yeah.
This venue.
I actually heard about that.
So I think through a combination of having, a curated museum that people can attend, doing workshops, doing community events, and then also just like, putting stuff up on TikTok, about like, making little TikToks about, like the history and the highlight of certain artists and what their contributions were. And, like why, when you hear like this, for example, this like rolling tom, this like boom, 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 that I can say to people, okay, well that's actually like the West Chicago sound. That's the Dance Mania sound. That's the guys that like Slugo and DJ Dion. They came up with this pattern, and that's now you can hear this, like not just here.
Oh, I would love that.
You can hear that, that influence, this artist is doing it, and this artist is doing it, and this is where this comes from.
That's awesome.
808 Ghetto House, 909. It was secondhand stores and like, just, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That'd be really cool. I think it would also mean a lot more coming from the warehouse. Like if we made those videos, it'd be like, what is this?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna put it out there, and I hope I can only hope for good reception. So
yeah, and I mean, I feel like good education can come from anywhere. Like if we put together a really good video, did our research, but I think there is this added element that you guys, coming from the warehouse. So that'd be really cool. I'm excited to see that. I need a little bit of an education. As much as like there's always new things to learn.
I'm still learning like all the time, like people tell me, I work really close with like Junior Sanchez, and he's one of my like mentors, and I do the A&R for his label like Brobot, and talking to Junior and talking to like OGs, like when I was talking to hanging out with Dion and Paul Johnson and talking to Robert now and Ron Trent, like I'm learning stuff nonstop. You know, so
I'm sure there's some great stories.
Yeah, there's definitely some funny stories.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, what were you saying?
I was going to ask, what's like the most impactful thing that you've learned from these guys? I mean,
these mentors.
Yeah, whether it's production related or culture related or, you learn how to create the best possible groove, or I don't know, like
You got to use
what if
this
you
MPC swing or
exactly
something.
pan your toms, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, what have you picked up on?
Honestly, for me, it's just kind of like understanding their stories. Like, okay, so how did they get in the music? What was going on when that was like that, like while they were getting into music, and, how did this all start, and kind of hearing, which groups were working with like who and who.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, like, I was, like, I'm like friends with like K-Lexi, and, K-Lexi is also like one of the second wave kind of founders of like house music. And, Kay was telling me stories about how like they lived in the same building and like down in like Hyde Park with like Marshall Jefferson and like Paul Johnson, and he was telling me about how like, he used to have to like, since he was the younger guy, like he had to like compete for like studio space. So, they would get in there and do all their stuff, and he had to learn how to get in, do things real quick, so he had to like, develop like the ideas in his head, because since he was low man on the totem pole, he didn't get the same amount of studio time as like the other guys did.
And it's not like it is today where you just have a bedroom studio.
Yeah, no. Thank God we have this stuff now.
I know, it's amazing.
Imagine how hot it used to be in those rooms.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and just like you're just like, whew, we got like how many? 5 minutes? Oh my God! All right, we got to record now. Like,
yeah.
That's wild. Let's go into, we've had like an extensive talk. I mean, this is really the main thing that I wanted to focus on, because this is something that we've seen, like Save the Warehouse. Like that was a thing for a while because they were potentially going to, take down the building.
Mm-hmm. That had nothing to do with me, by the way. Just like FYI.
Saving it?
Yeah, that was like, that popped up on my radar, and I was like, oh yeah, cool. Everybody's like hitting my DMs like, oh, are you part? I'm like, no, I like had no idea this was even going on.
Oh, damn.
Oddly enough, I kind of like learned a little bit about the story. There was a guy who works for the city, and he works in like the planning department, and then he saw that they were trying to like tear the warehouse down, and he tipped off, I think, the Frankie Knuckles Foundation, which is like Rob McKay, Joe Shanahan from Smart Bar, and a couple other people. And then these guys got together and put their political weight behind the situation, and got that passed.
Oh, good. Yeah. No, I didn't know. I mean, but that was the thing that cued me into the fact that was a possibility of it coming back and all that stuff. But yeah, so I'm glad that we went through that.
Yeah, that was literally like a pure coincidence, like that they did this. And I was like, I saw like everybody sharing it, and I was like, hell yeah, this is making
let's go.
This makes my job just that much easier too.
Yeah, no, it really got passed around.
Yeah, I was like, thank you for informing everybody about the history, so I don't have to do it. So
yeah, that seriously did. But I was gonna say, like, maybe we can talk a little bit about. It's called Brobot.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
How it started, like, what is it for the people?
So Brobot is Junior Sanchez's imprint, and I think he's had it since like their like early 2000s. It's had periods where it's been busier and he slows down a little bit. And it was during this time when, the whole BLM stuff was going on, and I was talking to like Seth Jr. and all this kind of stuff, that like Junior was like, oh, you seem really passionate about stuff. You want to do things, why don't you come in and work as like an A&R, and, you can use this as a way to like platform people that you think are deserving of like releases. And so the whole idea behind Brobot is to like strictly just focus on good music. So, it's very like for example, we don't even like a lot of labels, if you send in like a demo, they'll like listen to it, and then like they're going to check your socials. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, how many how many followers and this, that, and another does he have, and is he even cool enough to be on our label? They
do the swipe through,
yeah.
Or they have like the more sophisticated things we learned about. What was it called?
Oh, I don't remember what it was called, but
it like scraped all the data on your profile, all your social media. So it's just like, are they hot or not?
By the way, this is one of the things I had to bring this up because I think he deserves this. Like, one of the things that I've always respected about Jamie Jones, I don't know if you know this, to this day, Jamie Jones does all of his own A&R.
Really?
If you send, I like literally, if you send Jamie something and he like, you know, like sometimes it takes a while, you know what I mean? You got to like send him a couple things, or you have to be kind of like introed to him through somebody. But once you make it through that filter, I mean, he will like check it out himself. He'll write you an email. He's like, hey, Casey, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Looking at some tunes right now. Like, give me about 2 weeks and I'll get back to you. And like on the dot, 2 weeks later, Jamie will write you back.
Nice.
You know, hey, I'm going to pass on this for now, but like keep it going. Or, hey, you know, could you send us like a B-side to this? Like, I think this could be something. And like Jamie's very like, you know, he's very, for as big as he's gotten, he always, he still determines what goes on his label. And Jamie's never like he's never like gave a shit about like how big you are, how big you aren't. Like, you know, there's quite a few that do this. You know, some of the other like labels, you know, they do this other stuff where they look at your socials and they look at all that kind of stuff, because what they're thinking is, okay, well, if we sign your music and invest money in you, is there like a trajectory for you to grow with us? And do you even have like the it factor to be a big artist? And I think that kind of like, again, ignores like all the different like social economic things that like hinder people, especially when you think about it. Like, one of the biggest flaws with music right now is the fact that like every process that they use to like determine whether or not you're like a big artist or not, every step can be faked now, and it is. So you want to have more followers on your social media thing, you hire a PR company. You pay a PR company $10,000, they will go to Mixmag and DJ Mag and use their relationships to get you constant press and all this kind of stuff and help you. They'll go to like, you know, a lot of these like Instagram pages like Techno Airlines and this, that, and the other. These are actually like PR like sites.
No shit. So like all like club.techno or like all the
yes, that's like largely pay to play.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like even the fun like techno, I forget which one
I mean, I can't speak for every single one of them, but I know quite a few of them that like if you hit them up, I mean, try it. Like hit them up and they'll be like, yeah, blah blah blah. We charge this amount. And
oh yeah, no, I've gotten some messages from people where it's like tiered charging, and I'm just like. Okay, I thought we could just like collab
and so like what PR companies have learned is they know exactly like from these which ones are the biggest ones that if you put your stuff on there and they link you, then that'll create enough traffic to your website, and then you know once you've got enough traffic like pointing back towards your Instagram, this is like basically like SEO principles,
right?
Then you're gonna like rank higher within like the Google, the Instagram algorithm. The same thing with like TikTok. The real pain in the ass is the fact that now Spotify is using this exact same algorithm. So what Spotify does before they determine whether or not they're going to playlist a lot of your music or how much attention they give you or how much like of a like on off of the faucet they give you, is they will actually go out and read all your data and they have like a ranking. It's like a popularity ranking, and I can show it to you later on I have like a Spotify for artists thing.
Yeah.
And this will show you like what your artist popularity is. And that determines like, okay, well, how many people are playing your stuff on SoundCloud? How many plays do you have on this? How much press is talking about you on the internet? Like how much do people even like you? And the thing is that entire metric it can be faked.
Oh yeah. Easy. I mean, what about things like, I forget what it's called, but you just like pay money to pitch to playlists or just to get on them. There's a bunch of different websites, but I mean, yeah, it does seem like everything at every step of the way is pay to play now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And so it's like how are you really giving the people, and this is why I always say like this kind of like mindset is like screwing over the fans too. Because how are you really,
if you're rich, you can make your mark very easily.
Exactly. And but the people who are rich and can afford to do this are like a very, 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 very small part of society. And so, you know, this doesn't represent, you know, the guy who maybe lives on the West Side and has like a drum machine and has Ableton, and this guy makes crazy sick beats and some new shit you've never even heard in your entire life that like whenever he plays it, like people go crazy, you know, it basically like it creates a system where it's like everything's kind of like just like mid at best.
Yeah.
And then now we're kind of getting to this way where like a lot of these like big name, you know, guys like Skrillex and Fred Again and all this kind of stuff. Like, I mean, dude, like Fred Again, like
Yeah, dude.
is literally royalty. Like he's
he cannot do anything wrong.
You know?
There's so much hype behind him.
and it's like
Daddy Skrill put him on.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like that track Rumble is like literally, as far as like rhythm tracks are concerned, like is the most mid shit I've ever heard in my life.
I don't even think it's really like rhythm, I would
It's just-
say. I think it goes off, personally. I think it's a banger. There's like some Skrillex production in there that
He's a great producer.
you don't find in other places, but that's just my defense.
I mean, yeah, they're drawing from like a lot of like that early '90s UK like rhythm like stuff.
Yeah.
It's very throwback, and you're seeing the same thing with like the billion like '90s hip hop edits that you're hearing. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, if I hear like one more like TLC or like Wu-Tang edit, I'm gonna kill somebody. You know what I mean? Like
Tech House edit, or
yeah, exactly. And it's
Dude,
like
I can't tell you. I've even heard from like bigger artists that you'll see on like, you know, some kind of higher tiered slots on festivals put in so little work into the edit too. They literally just chop the chorus, throw it in like La La or something, and then just like that's it. And they call it a day, and they're like, okay, great, can't use that one anymore. What's next? And it's like
what
there's no creativity in that.
What they're looking for is they're looking for something that like when people hear it, they instantaneously recognize it and kind of like can sing along to it.
Bounce with it, drop.
Yeah.
Which actually, that was probably one of the earlier ones, which was like, oh, this is cool. But then
it gets played out
a million.
But that's the way things are. Like they don't reward. Like what people do, it's very like monkey see, monkey do. Nobody's actually trying to say like, oh, well, I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to be the trendsetter that everybody's going to like hop on. Everybody's they're going for that like safe space of like what is everybody doing? What do people want? What's trending right now? And then you're just kind of like chasing trends. And then when you're chasing trends, I mean, nowadays like trends change so fast. Like you're not really like, how can you actually get like, you know, like efficient at like making like a certain sound when every 3 months you're like having to like hop on a new bandwagon.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you're making this track, then you got to go sign this track, and then you've got to wait 3-6 months for this track to come out, you know, and it's like, okay, well, by the time that stuff comes out, now you've already kind of like missed the wave.
Yeah.
And there's so many interesting topics to talk about on this. I like want to just keep going into it, but I do want to kind of go back to what led us down this, which is that you were kind of playing A&R and being able to choose the dude that has 20 followers that's making the craziest shit, and you can platform them, quote unquote. Like, so going back to Brobot.
Yeah.
I knew I was gonna fuck it up. That's why I said you know, like, are there people that you have signed whatever, like release their music that you're like, hell yeah, I'm glad we did that, even though, and also like, how's their career going now?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, I can think of like Teddy Wong is one, Heist, this guy named like Not Enough Soul. He's a dude from like the DC area. Each one of them kind of like, you know, like they were, you know, great producers, great DJs, and like I heard their music, and you know, it fit like that Brobot sound, which is largely like kind of like this like sample house jacking disco kind of sound.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like those people have, you know, after we signed them, they've like gone on to like release multiple times on like Hot Creations and have bigger releases, and
wow,
and some of these guys like literally like are now touring. So
that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Do you still do it?
Yeah, I'm still the A&R. Yeah, or one of them. There's 3 of us.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So if someone, how do people send in tracks?
Sometimes they'll just like end up. There's like a guy named Alejandro Bustamante. He what's Alejandro's like artist name? Oh jeez, this is bad.
It's okay. It's on the spot.
Currents is his DJ name. And so sometimes like people will send stuff to his, like, you know, the Brobot account, and then Handra will send it to like myself and like Blackwell, and then we will talk about, and then it's kind of like a voting thing, like a yay or nay amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes like I do some like kind of like, you know, I have some like ear to the you know, streets kind of thing where like I see somebody posting some tracks on Instagram or whatever, and I hit them up and I'm like, yo, like your shit's good, and like, you know, would you like to, do you have like 2 tracks you could do as a side and B side that you'd like to sign to Brobot?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, or I've got people that I know through like my network, or people that, like people's music that I've played that I know like they're signing only on like smaller labels, and like I'll hit them up or get a hold of them and be like, yo, can you send me you know, 3 tracks that I can send to the A&R team that we can, you know, put something of yours out. I'd love to put something out of yours.
Yeah, that's awesome. How much, I guess I'm just curious in a sense, like for a label, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brobot's a label. How often, is there like a schedule to try to adhere to, or is it like we just try to put out good music?
The shortest turnaround is typically like 3 months. So let's say, for example, you guys sent me an EP now, and then tomorrow I sent it in to the guys to, you know, to sign, and everybody likes it. And then let's say, by some grace of God, you got your contract within 2 days. Mm-hmm. It would still take like 3 to 4 months from that point to like actually have the release come out, because we do have, I think we're doing like 2 releases a month. Mm-hmm. And at minimum it's 1. So it's quite regular.
Is that an effort though to like not dilute too much? Because like by a release, do you mean like an EP to an album's worth, or just like a track?
An EP. Mm-hmm. We try to avoid doing singles.
Yeah.
Because I think like, especially with people who are like smaller names, it's nice to give like the audience a little bit more.
Yeah, it's like a flash in the pan. You're just like, oh, that was cool.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to show people, you know, I prefer 3-track EPs, because then if somebody's doing 3 tracks and all 3 tracks are like different enough that you can differentiate them from one another, but they're like good, similar enough to fit on the label. Mm-hmm. You know, but they're quality enough that like people can say, okay, like the A side was good, the B side was good, and the B2 was like good as well. Okay, well, I would hope that when people see consistency, that they would want to go out and like dig a little more and find more from that artist.
Yeah, totally.
With 2 tracks, you know, that's better than 1. But for me, 1 track is kind of like,
it's also nice. It's almost like nowadays, like you get 1 track from Brobot, and then if you're listening on Spotify, it just goes straight into this algorithm of shit that it doesn't know. Like, I mean, at least from my experience. So it's kind of nice to just have it in like a package that's like, okay, I'm gonna listen to these 3 songs.
Currently, the way the Spotify algorithm actually works, a lot of people are releasing singles because of this. Mm-hmm. Because how Spotify works is it's going to want to look at like your overall, like your consistency. Mm-hmm. So like your numbers will go up more the more you're consistently on a time schedule releasing music onto Spotify. So it's essentially, it's like, okay, well, you're giving us content, we're going to reward you for this. Mm-hmm. The less you do, the less we're going to reward you for. You know, and then the other issue is like most like actual house music tracks are like 6-7 minutes long.
Right,
you know,
they like shorter tracks.
Spotify likes the magic number is like 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Mm-hmm. So like, how can you cram? Like, you know what I mean? You're literally like cutting it in half. So it kind of takes.
It's like the radio edit.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that, you know, that's like, I don't know, for a while I was like doing radio edits of everything I put out, and then I was just like, oh, I don't give a shit anymore.
Is Spotify where it's at though? Like, is that where you really want to pop off the most if you want to like?
It depends on what you want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, Spotify, getting big on Spotify will definitely get you shows in the USA, in the UK, but there's other ways to get big. And one of the ones that, like, for example, like a lot of guys are doing now, and this is something that Garrett David does really well, is like focusing on like Discogs, which is where like a lot of vinyl sales are. And the good thing about Discogs and releasing on vinyl is, let's say, for example, you print or you press, let's say 200 records for, let's say $2,500. And then I don't know, let's say the they're $25, whatever, a record. You know that when you've sold, when you've sold all 200 records, your return is going to be X. You know what I mean? So it makes it easier to like reinvest and then like kind of like scale a little bit.
Yeah, opposed to like just putting money into a playlist that
just gonna do nothing.
Like like you're gonna get more follows or views, listens, whatever, but it's like the money you're gonna get is not gonna be as tangible.
You're not gonna get any money. You're literally just like throwing money away. And the only time you're gonna make money is when you start hitting those like MK John Summit numbers where you're doing 200 something thousand plays. But then in order to do 200 something thousand plays, like you literally have to, there's like a formula you have to follow at that point. And if you're not really following that formula, you're not really going to get you're not going to hit those numbers, which means you're not going to make any money. So it's kind of like, to me, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't really focus so much on Spotify because it's kind of like, what's the point? Like got
to diversify your assets in the music industry. We were actually just talking about this, that it's like some people, they have like 100,000 followers on TikTok, and then you go to their SoundCloud and it's like 500 followers. You're like, I mean, also SoundCloud's a different thing because it's kind of not in its heyday.
Yeah.
So maybe people just don't care about that. But it's like weird how you were even saying like, oh, I get way more plays on Apple Music than Spotify. Yeah. Why is that? I don't know. But it's just like the diversification. I'm sure going and chasing all that money is a huge pain in the ass.
So Spotify is more for the people who are more like, the reason why Spotify is a big metric is there's a direct correlation to big Spotify numbers and actual fans that go out and buy tickets to shows.
Right. They also have like connection, like the I forget what the app is called, but there's one that it'll tell you if someone's in town.
Exactly. And Spotify itself will do this too as well. You can load your tour dates and stuff on there.
Yeah.
And so there's that, and then on top of that, like, so that's like its own community. The people who like, let's say buy music off of like Discogs, those are typically going to be your people that are like into vinyl. They have records at home. They have a record player at home. Those are people who are a little more committed to like the listening of music or playing of music. They're like, probably 95% of them are DJs. Then you have like, Beatport, which is like where I kind of focus a lot and I do quite well. And that is, again, like, building your audience of a Beatport within like the certain categories. And Beatport has everything, has a bit more range as far as like what kind of, to me, Beatport's like a happy medium between Discogs and between Spotify. So I think like probably a majority of the people that get the music on Beatport, like they're either within like that 1, 2, 3 years of like DJing themselves. They're probably largely bedroom DJs, or they're DJs who are just now starting to play in clubs. And you do have obviously people who are DJs that like are like big professional DJs, but it's a lot more accessible to download a digital file, put it on a USB stick and take it to a venue where they have CDJs that you can play it on. Or buying a controller or playing something over like Tractor or like Serato on your laptop and like working and like practicing the art of DJing. So most of those people like still buy music and then like also go and buy tickets. So it used to be prior to Spotify that your career was made like if you did really, really well on Beatport, that did the exact same thing for you as like getting big on Spotify. And that's why then like the individual labels had more power. Like the labels themselves had fan bases. Nowadays, like, before if you released on like say Dirty Bird a couple times and you released on Hot Creations or you released on Defected or something, that would like be like, oh wow, they're on Defected, so that Defected's this, and I associate Defected with this level of value. This person must be good. I'm going to those shows.
Is it not still like that?
No,
less so.
Less so.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now it's, and that's why now, and this has a plus and a minus. The good thing is now it doesn't really matter what label you're releasing on. You can literally, an artist can make their own label, put their own music out. And if you've got money to invest in Spotify marketing, this, that, and the other, you can blow your own stuff up because people now are caring more about they're discovering their music more now through like the Spotify algorithms than they are over individual labels.
Also just went on like Defected SoundCloud the other day. There's so many releases.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been around for a long time, but
They got a bunch of different labels too. It's not just like Defected. They've got Defected, then they got like the DFTD imprint.
yeah.
And then like Classic, and then
The DFTD's got some good shit.
yeah, it's more like the club focused stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel like there's almost this like nightclub factor where it's like, you know, your nightclub's been around for so long. It's like there's so much in there that, I mean, I'm saying like the nightclubs that will be around for like 4 years and then change their name.
Oh, yeah,
that effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that is interesting. So it's not, you don't think it's as valuable. You think you could just do your own label.
You could,
write your own
yeah.
stuff.
I think that's one of the good things about like modern technology. I mean, one of the things you can also do is, I mean, you don't even have to even like put your music on Spotify if you don't want to and still be successful.
Bandcamp, I've heard, is great for people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is Brobot going to do any presses? Are you guys going to press some vinyls or?
I don't know. Well, ask Junior.
It'd be pretty cool. I mean,
it'd be nice.
I just got Technics, so that's why I'm like, vinyl? Like,
Yeah.
just got vinyl?
I wish we would. It's just like the thing is like the distribution system for wax is, I mean, first of all, it's like you got to plan a lot more. So let's say, for example, you want to put something out on vinyl. Okay, well, now you got to find a press that wants to take you on, because most of them are actually at their like maximum, like, you know, they can't even take new customers in.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah, it's like it's in super high demand. There's literally like more demand than there are like presses available. Like it's literally like crack dealers like sell like, hey, I got something for you. I got the good stuff. I got the hookup. Like that's how it is with like DJs and like and finding like a new vinyl plant. It's like there's like some back rooms like, hey, you know, I know a guy who just bought some pressers that he can make his vinyl and make vinyl for you. You know, he's got a good price. You know, he does this and this, and it's like, okay, cool. Shh, don't tell anybody. You know.
Interesting. I feel like this is probably just like, I don't even know if this is worth talking about, but just like the environmental aspect that some people could come down on you, like, it's not good for the environment, streaming's better. So I don't know who's crunched the numbers exactly on like,
correct though?
I don't know. I mean, you got to think like,
farms?
yeah,
exactly.
That's exactly what I was thinking, is a gigantic warehouse of servers. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I guess it
I've just heard that.
I guess it kind of just depends on how you do it. I mean, you know, obviously, I think with like vinyl, there definitely could be room for improvement. Like, you know, maybe you can have more like recyclable vinyls, but a lot of times like there are people that do this, like they'll like remelt and reprint
Other
records.
vinyls.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
man.
then that normally sounds horrible. Like
Yeah.
like the
Melting it down.
yeah, the quality just isn't quite there. I think with like a higher demand for like once it gets bigger and bigger, you know, I think people are going to find more sustainable ways to do records. But then again, there's like a lot more factors to this. Like, are you pressing 5,000 records and like air shipping them across the whole world? Or are you doing a limited batch of 200 and picking it up in your car and then like taking it to one record store?
Sure. Yeah.
So the, you know, economic footprint is obviously then like much smaller. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like a gaslight, especially when you know.
I mean, it's
that,
it's like ridiculous. That's why I was like, I don't know what should bring this up.
Dutch Shell is like responsible for 90% of like the world's pollution. I don't think vinyl presses
your
are the
vinyl press is going to be the worst thing. Yeah, no, I know. It's a ridiculous thing, but some of these things stick for some reason. Like I remember hearing this thing about how almond milk uses way more water.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, fuck. I mean, I'm trying not to drink normal milk. And it's like, who's this on? Like the consumer, the people making it? Also, how are they? It's just...
There's actually...
There's
so this is a little side tangent. Like when it comes to like this whole like green myth.
Yeah.
A lot of this like green spending stuff when it comes to, you know, the idea that you as an individual can make a change.
Yeah.
You know, this was actually like invented as a marketing tool by the oil lobby.
Oh, dude, we're about to go deep. Like, we got to call up my dad because he will go in.
Yeah.
I get it.
I work for a food packaging company, and anything you think you're getting that's green is...
It's not.
No,
promise
Mace.
you.
Unveiling the curtain. There's just so much.
There's no quality control. There's no, okay, like I can put like what is it like no GMOs or bio or whatever on my package, and then have like another set of like eggs or whatever that's like the exact same thing. It just doesn't have that, like, it's all marketing.
It's all marketing. You're right. And we get sucked into it. That's why, like, I literally, when I was talking about the vinyl, like, you know, green aspect, I was like, oh, I don't even know if I should bring this up, because it's so ridiculous at a certain point. Like, I've seen so many scams like that.
The paper straws.
Yeah, the straws. I mean, dude, electric cars.
Yeah.
It's like, anyway, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. I just don't want to become like, this is the podcast for producers, not the podcast for like, let's talk
Polluters.
about green. Yeah,
Oh,
polluters.
There we go. That's
Nice.
yeah.
I think we should all take like communal buses to every party, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Should be one
That'd
of
be cool.
one of the green buses. We should
Actually,
all
would-
go together, you know.
I'm
and,
like, dude, I have this concept. Don't think I've talked about this on the podcast, but it's like, we got to live in like a Dr. Seuss style city. Like, we got to have like bridges that just go over stuff. So like you can just be on your bike or rollerblades or whatever.
we call this Amsterdam, by the way.
Yeah. But you know, Chicago, they're not like, we need a second tier where everyone can just bike and use their vehicles that are not cars. So it's safer. You can get a workout in and whatever.
And then you'll have some like dude from like Schaumburg who's like, you can't make me back into the town. I want to drive my Ford F-150, you know?
Bro,
On the
8-lane
second
highway. Just we need more of those.
Or the people that are like on the bike lane with their like electric bike, which
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
regulated, and it's going like 45. You're like, bro, dude, you're going to kill someone.
Them and scooters are the bane of my existence. Like,
Yeah.
like you ever like drive like downtown or in like West Loop during like rush hour? Like it's literally like playing Frogger, but in real life, and you might like get arrested.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw this video of this dude going like 50 on the highway on a scooter. I was like, that. And the guy was like, this guy's going crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I was just
Those
like,
dudes
yeah.
are nuts,
Those
man.
one wheels too, dude.
Yeah.
Oh
Those things
my
can
God.
Rip it.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't even imagine. What if you just hit a Chicago pothole? It's like a bathtub in the street and you're just fucked. Like, I don't
I'm
know.
literally the kind of guy that like when I walk out like at night in Chicago, like I would look both ways at 2 a.m. on a one-way street. Like
yeah.
I do not trust the drivers here.
Oh, no.
Last thing I'm doing is getting on a one wheel or a scooter in this traffic. Hell no.
Dude, it's weird too. Like, I used to bike everywhere, and now that I just drive, it's like I just look at other people driving and everyone's looking at their phone.
Yeah.
Like, we're in this weird midpoint where we shouldn't really be driving because technology has just completely captured our attention, but we don't have driverless cars. So we're just like, uh-oh, this guy's texting. They're like,
my favorite is watching like CPD like do the same thing.
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, dude, it's literally everyone.
Yeah.
It's kind of freaky. So anyway, we could talk about other stuff. There was some other stuff I wanted to touch on, and I don't know, we're in a weird place with playing music on the show because it's just like on YouTube it can't exist unless you specifically allow people to use copyrighted music. Anyway,
I mean,
do you have a time crunch, or are you
no. I was
Okay.
just like I got a phone call, so I just like hung up on them bitches.
oh to the watch. Yeah.
This is the like ADD controller right here. That's what this is.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, that would give me worse ADD. It
Could
feels
not
like.
survive with it. Yeah.
I have to say, for me, like my screen time has gone down considerably since I bought. I'm not like trying to like sell Apple Watches here, but like for our ADD brethren out there who are looking for ways to minimize their screen time and be more productive.
Why so? Because I have thought the exact opposite, where I would just feel it like I'd be like, oh, here we go again. Like, I'm just gonna check back in.
Because I'll get some like alert on my thing and it'll like show up on my watch, and I can like look and see whether or not it's like something I even need to respond to right now.
Versus if your phone like lights up somewhere where you have to like open
And
it
then
up.
I open it, and then when it's open, then
you're
I
just
gotta
like on Instagram.
yeah,
Wait,
and
what?
then, yeah, exactly. And
Interesting.
and then
Yeah.
I like cat videos, and then now I have to like share that with people, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're writing me back, and it's
Yeah.
dark out now.
That's true. I've thought about it because I like the health metric stuff.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
No, it's dope. I like it a lot.
Okay.
I've gotten like addicted to actually like closing my rings on the app. Like
When people call you?
No. Like, so there's like like on the fitness app, there's like these little rings and stuff, like the activity monitors.
Oh yeah.
And so I've got
you fill it up.
Yeah. This is like my like, and you get like little trophies for if you.
Oh, it's gamified.
Yeah, exactly. This is like I said, this is the perfect thing for like ADD people.
yeah. So do you set, like, is it like steps? Like you have like a certain amount of steps you need to complete in a day?
Basically it's like 30 minutes of like, this might be like TMI, but like 30 minutes of like exercising activity, and then I think 1,000 calories through activity. My standing time's like way too high. It's like 12 hours. Like that's a little high. I need to change that. And then what's the other one? There's like a third one as well, another ring. I forget what it is.
Maybe like screen time or something. That's probably it.
Steps as well.
Steps, yeah.
And then I typically, I don't know, like I think if I do like 10,000, 12,000 steps a day, that closes pretty much everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because that just kind of like is like you're burning calories.
Yeah, I know that like I don't know, like that's one of the things I actually like really liked about living in Europe compared to here is I love the fact that I could like, I didn't need a car. Mm-hmm. Like I absolutely, I love cars and I hate them at the same time. Like for me, it's like, I like cars when I'm like, I can take them and, you know, it's convenient to have one to like, let's say you're doing like big grocery shopping or something like this. But like, I don't know, like in Berlin, like my house is literally like right around the corner from two like grocery stores. I have to like go down the stairs. It's like a 5-minute walk to the other one and like a 7-minute walk to the other one. And like literally just like, going to the grocery store and back, I know it's like 2,000 steps. Walking to the subway line is like 1,000 steps. So just like the amount of like activity that you do just by like being alive and like participating in society, is like way higher than here.
What do they call it? Those like blue zones. Have you heard of that? Where it's like people that live. It's got the most like centenarians where they've lived to be like 100, and basically it's kind of that where everything that you have to do throughout the day is movement. Like you got to go down to the whatever. It's just like a bunch of walking and moving your body.
I mean,
and then their diets are like
and well, like there's less like preservatives and stuff.
Yeah,
like
that
like,
too.
Yeah, like one of the things that always happens is whenever I'm in Europe for like an extended period of time and I come back to the States, like I feel like I'm not getting the same. I can eat way more like American food, and I'm like, I'm just never getting full.
Oh yeah.
And then you like realize it just doesn't even have like, the same level of nutrients in it, and that's why you're never feeling like satiated. You know, so.
Oh, man, yeah, that first-hand experience. Do you feel like the water is different too? Like, are we? I watched this thing about the water. We don't have minerals, bro.
It's different. So like, depends where you are. I mean,
yeah.
For example, like
talking about Germany.
The water in Germany. Water in Germany for the most part is pretty good. Not the shit on France and Spain, but I don't drink their tap water. Like I played rugby in France, and then I was like, "Is it okay if I use the tap water?" And like our coach was like, don't do that." You know? He'd just be like, "Here's a bottle of water." You know.
So do you speak fluent German?
I speak fluent German and like conversational Danish.
Oh really?
Yeah,
are there a lot of Danish people in Germany?
No. So my family's from like the northern, like the north border area of Germany. So like when I went to like school up there, and you literally just pick it up, like Danish TV, and then like radio would bleed over. Mm-hmm. Also like the dialect that's spoken up there is like literally like a mixture of like German and Danish. So it's kind of it sounds impressive when I say I speak German and Danish and English, but it's like when you realize that like the difference between the two is like if you speak Italian and then you like learn Spanish. You just like learn to add like an A to the end of everything instead of an O. You know? I learned a new language.
Yeah, that is real.
I think like 60% of Danish is pretty much like German. Just the pronunciation is like way different. So you just gotta get used to that. That was the biggest hurdle.
Yeah, for sure. I have a couple of things that I want to go over, but just right here, like, have you traveled a lot?
Yeah.
To other, what's like, is Germany your favorite?
I mean, Germany's like home, but I definitely have like plenty of like critiques about Germany. So I mean,
sure.
I don't know. Like for me, it's like I like being there because I know what I'm getting, and then I have like a friends base and stuff like this there. So that's like, you know, it's like feels more comfortable. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's like a lot of places that I've been where it's like really, really sick. Like I really like Barcelona as well. Like London's dope. It's just like stupid expensive.
This is partially because I'm going to Europe and I'm like, where do I go?
France is nice. So I've been to Denmark, the UK, Ireland, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Belgium, France, Spain. Was it like Italy, Serbia? Was it Hungary, Czech Republic, Poland, and then yeah.
Have you gigged in a lot of these places?
That's kind of yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
I figured, because I was checking out your social media. I was like, this guy's been to a lot of places, or at least it seems so.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I always found like really like kind of like different within the scenes between like Europe and like the States, and it always just like really pissed me off too, because like, you know, I can like literally hit up venues in South America and Europe and just get like booked like this, you know what I mean? Like you know, you send them your press kit and you've got like your little like resume, like what you've all done and this and the other. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, that's dope. Like, you know, and you've got like a fan base. Like when I play in Europe, a lot of times, was it like last May, I played 12 shows through Europe, something like this. And then I think like 80% of the shows I was like doing open to close sets and like sold the place out. And then it's like here, I'll like reach out to, you know, some venue somewhere in the States and they'll be like, hey, you know, like I'd love to come play for you guys. And they're like, nobody knows who you are. And I'm like, like a video that proves otherwise, you know?
Yeah.
That's a big culture difference between here and Europe. I mean,
yeah, they dig a bit more.
Here?
There.
Oh.
But that has a lot to do with the fact that, one, there's not the same sort of like stigma or being viewed as like, what is it like? A
commodity.
No. It's not that like, okay, like people start drinking alcohol at like 16 years of age. There's not this sort of like negative connotation with like consuming alcohol or going to a nightclub. That's just considered like what people do. Like when I lived in Saarbrücken, for example, Saarbrücken has like a population of 170,000 people. There were 10 clubs that do electronic music. Like, you know, there's just like when in that like tiny little place, there was like so many different venues that you can get booked for. And then if you drive 45 minutes down the road, you're in another town that has like 8 more venues. So they just need way more artists. There's a lot more of like these smaller, you know, up and coming mid spots that can book basically people that are like from beginners to like mid-level. And then you had like these massive venues that book those big massive headliners. And basically everybody kind of had like their own space, and people would come to those places because they knew about a certain venue having a certain reputation for a certain sound and a certain level of curation. And so once again, it was the venue that drives people there, and then like you just kind of fit in part of like the venue's, you know, like programming. Mm-hmm. Whereas in here, you know, you've got like, you know, clubs that will book somebody from like Solid Grooves and then turn around and book somebody from like Anjuna Deep and then turn around and book somebody from like Drum Code. And it's like, dude, none of that even makes any sense.
Oh, that makes, yeah. That's, you know, interesting. So the clubs out there, it sounds like, to what you're trying to do is like curate more of like, okay, when you go to this club, you kind of know what to expect.
Exactly.
I mean, it'll be a little different, but like, it's not like you're going to not throwing any shots here, but it's not like you're going to sound bar and one night is trance, the next night is dubstep, and then next weekend they're doing techno and house, and it's like, yeah, the venues themselves have like marketed themselves in a way that they have their own kind of like built-in crowds. Mm-hmm. And when you have your own built-in crowds because you've invested in your own brand and your own brand identity, it makes it easier to open up the space to booking new talent because the people are going to come regardless. It also helps you negotiate. Yeah, it also helps you negotiate like more reasonable fees for artists as well, because if you don't need to spend $5,000 to like sell your venue out, you know, to book some like big name, you know, tech house guy, and you can spend $800. Okay, well, you've paid a DJ like a good fee. $800 in one night's not bad. You know what I mean? I mean, these kind of guys, like, you know, I mean, they'll play like, you know, 10 shows a month, make $8,000. Like you're like,
that's a pretty good life.
Yeah, you're definitely living off of your music, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just different. Like people here, you know, like what the clubs start at like 21, And then most people who go to, you know, like nightclubs in the States, like the typical age span is like outside of like cities like Chicago, Detroit, New York, you know, they go out at like 21. They go out while they're in college. Then by the time they're 25, 26, 27, you already hear this like, oh, I'm too old to go to the clubs anymore. Like, and I'm like, dude, shut up. You're 27 years old.
You're too old to like do blow until like 4 a.m. and drink a bottle. And
I think it would be different if the club experience was not as like, like you got to buy a bottle and like all. I don't know. It's just like not a fun experience going to a club as
not a single like outside of like Pasha. Like not a single electronic music club in Germany or in Europe in general does bottle service.
Wow.
They like literally, they don't want it. That's like for like the mainstream clubs and the pop clubs and like the hip hop clubs, you know, because the entire thing is
doesn't make any sense.
They're not, again, like that comes down like a classism thing.
Like exclusivity.
Exactly. So you're not really being accepted and like opening up new people and bringing people in when you've got somebody like roped off in a VIP area that, because they have bad financial planning, that they somehow they get their own. I am the king of this corner, you know. do not trespass in my realm, or I will have this big dude bash you to a smithereens. You know?
Yeah, yeah. It's honestly like going the other way.
Yeah, it's like, again, it's more sustainable. So, but it has a lot to do with the fact that like people, when they like the Vegas model for like nightclubs in the United States has been the one that kind of like reigns supreme. You know, you have to have like, you know, the bottle service, this, that, and the other. And like, you know, clubs, when they do their performas and they're like, you know, opening a venue and they're taking out loans, they're building this into their business plan, and they're building this into their financial structure. So what happens is like, you'll see with like, I'll say things like Prism, for example. Okay, well, Prism's now trying to like rebrand to this like Serum thing, because they realize that when Prism used to do like really, really commercial music, and then they kind of like started moving more towards like, you know, like tech house and some more underground music. And there wasn't really that like, how do you go from like doing like hip hop and like look at me parties and like be seen with like the lights up bright, you know, with like this bottle girls coming out in bikinis and like holding up like signs of like somebody, you know, whatever. How do you go from like this?
Like a wedgie up their ass.
How do you go from like that to like underground culture and make that pivot where you're still like selling bottles, but then not like turning off like the crowd that like likes this kind of music? So it's like this little tap dance you kind of have to do. And that's why they took, you know, for example, like they took the booths and they moved them off to the side, and they limited the amount of booths, and they had to like kind of readjust some of their stuff to, you know, pivot in a different direction. But if you don't create a concept around this in the first place, you can still book the talent you want to book, and do it just by like having, you know, focusing on like modest bar sales. Like, you don't want to necessarily focus on like, okay, instead of thinking like $100 per head per person per this, because you've like got this like this skew from like what the profit that you're getting from like the bottle service. If like, let's say you do something more sustainable where, all right, well, let's just focus on maybe trying to get, let's say the average person spends $35, not including entry, in our venue, and we've got capacity for 1,000 people. Okay, we can basically calculate with $35,000 in revenue a night. Okay, from this $35,000 in revenue, 5,000 has to go towards like, you know, talent, or 8,000 goes to talent, and another 1,000 goes to support, and then like another 500 goes to hotels, this, that, and the other, and then another amount goes to whatever. And at the end, you still have $10,000 per night per profit. So it's not like, even with the more sustainable models, that you're not like making good money. What it is these guys like now have like investors who are expecting like 20% plus returns.
Yeah.
You know, because you've built like
you gotta get a lesso, like,
yeah, nobody wants us to live in a sustainable manner. It's like, how much money can I make right now as fast as possible, instead of club owners saying, hey, you know what, I'm cool with making 120 or 130K a year from like basically passive income. You know, now they want to like, you know, they don't want to settle for that. They want, you know, 300, 400, 500,000 They want to maximize profits. Well, you can only maximize profits to a certain point because at the end of the day, like, things are finite.
Yeah.
So,
and it's cool that you guys were able to find those finance people that get that and understand that. I have to imagine that they at some point were really heavily involved in the dance music industry, right?
The person we have is but they are very interested in cultural things.
Okay. Oh, I mean, either way,
It does hand in hand. Yeah. For sure.
So it's one of those things where, I mean, the way I kind of explain things is like, look, it's like, do you want to make, do you want a business plan where you pump a lot of money into it, turn it into a big brand, you make $500K a year, but then the club, closes down in 5 years because you've like basically burnt the asset. Now you've got to like close it down, rebrand it, or you have to like do this sort of scenario that you hope that like somebody bigger is going to come out along and buy you out. I mean, to me, these aren't tangible things. There's no guarantee that somebody's going to buy you out for $10 million or $15 million. That's just kind of like a hope. That's not real. That's not like that's a bet. Because you're gambling,
Yeah.
And then, but what you can do, you can make things say, okay, you know what? Like, we can do this in a more sustainable manner. We can book talent at like a more affordable rate, and we can focus on consistency, and we'll make we'll make $120,000 or $150,000 a year, for 30 years and have the club for 30 years as opposed to going gangbusters for 5 years.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. It's like the viral versus, the long-term approach. Everything's always a gamble. Like, the city of Chicago could go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Who the fuck knows,
Yeah.
Like, there's things outside of your control always. But, yeah, I mean, I think that the model that you're talking about is just more sustainable in general.
It's going to be more fun, too.
Yeah, it seems
it's gonna
like
be a lot more fun.
Less pressure, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we've been going for a while. I just wanted to kind of touch on these two things because, people put things in their bio for a reason. And you mentioned culture earlier just for like a blip of a second. I just wanted to, what is it? What are you doing with it? What's going on? I know this is kind of a hard jump into something
Okay,
else.
so Culture is the other label from Junior Sanchez and Demure. And, they were kind of like, the whole project for that was to do music that's different and do music that Junior and Demure at the time thought was like objectively good, but wasn't getting picked up by bigger labels. And then that was their way to like break new music that's like quality, so like...
So this is almost like the meta of what Brobot is, or they're different?
Culture typically works with bigger artists.
Or the prototype, I would...
Yeah, so but Brobot was their first. Culture was like a creation that came along literally in like...
after.
Yeah, I think the first one was in like 2020 is when they first launched it. And they were originally focusing on like larger artists. So I mean like I think was it like Kevin Knapp's released there, Junior Sanchez released there, Demure's released there. I mean, Edge and Dance have had a release on Culture. And it was kind of like the way of grabbing, from how I understood it, they wanted to grab some of these bigger name guys and get them to do like culturally focused and like real, like artistic style music. Yeah. And then provide them a platform for it. And, I mean, yeah, it worked for a while and it's still kind of going on. But the issue is like, again, like, I feel like once the pandemic went down and the steam started bouncing back, like people were like, didn't really have the bandwidth to like focus on these kind of things. They just kind of went back to what they thought works.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is like, their management's behind them, pushing them. It's like, no, you got to do more of these. You need more of these. You need more of these. And then plus like having like some of these guys have like crazy tour schedules. I know guys like Jamie and, just Dance and these dudes, like they will literally like, will sit down in the slow seasons and then just like crank out like 6 months worth of tracks in like a month period, in like December or January when they're not touring as much, so they don't really have that flexibility, to basically stop and then react the same way that let's say like smaller artists like have, or people who aren't touring as much because they're just that much busier.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay. So that's something that is something you support and work with? Have you released on?
I have 3 releases on Culture. So my first one was with a collaboration with Kevin Knapp.
Mm.
And then the other one was the Close Your Eyes EP that I did. And then the third one was actually like I did an EP with Robert Owens, was also one of like the godfathers of house music. He's a vocalist, was one of the members of like Fingers Incorporated with like Larry Heard and stuff, and goes back to like the fact when I was a kid, I had that was one of the first like house music like tapes that I had.
Mm. I thought you were gonna say you had like the Larry Heard coloring book. No. I was like, damn, that goes deep.
I don't know if like
we had this guy Kofresi on, and he was talking about how that Kofresi was a pirate in Puerto Rico, and he had the Kofresi coloring book. I was like, damn, what? So I thought it was about to turn into one of those situations.
Maybe, yeah. So I had like a release with Robert Owens, and then plus I had like several other so I had like the collab with Robert, and then I had 3 more like tracks that I put out that I made during the pandemic that I put this EP together because I basically wanted to show like, okay, like this is what like I can do when I have time to like really focus on music and make things. This is the quality of music when I'm only focusing on stuff that I want to make. This is what I can do.
Yeah.
And so we actually tried to like shop that all around. We were talking to like Cutting Heads for a while, which is like Martinez Brothers label, and that was like a whole like that was a whole thing. And then we tried to talk to Defected, but then like Defected like just like wasn't getting back to us on things, and I was like, you know what, like fuck it, like let's just put it on Culture. And then I ended up getting like remixes from like Roy Davis Jr. and then Joy Smooth, KLXC, and Junior Sanchez, and I just basically wanted to do an EP that like I thought was dope, and then I want to work with people that I thought were dope and actually like doing things. I want to do like a kind of like an all killers no fillers kind of thing.
Yeah. Was that one that I was looking? Was that it's like gray or no?
It's like a brown, like beige kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish we could play some of the stuff. At this point in the episode, it's way too late. It's like it wouldn't even make sense. And we're also dealing with just copyright shit. So definitely go check that out. Okay, cool. So let's just cover the last thing, and then we got a little wrap-up question. Shake Shop Records. What do we got going on there?
Shake Shop was my imprint. When we was first talking about like doing this stuff again, like with the with the junior and all this kind of stuff, I wanted to like basically have my own parties and event series, and I kind of have this like what I like to call like a shaky sound, which is like I have lots of like mid-level percussions in my tracks, and I use my mid-level percussions to make kind of like jazzy elements out of things, and I like mid-level percussions because I can add like a lot of, I like to call this like shoulder roll music. It can kind of keep you in the pocket just like this. So I figured like if you put a lot of movement in like the mid, it's like nice like groovy music that you can like kind of like keep people like kind of like locked into. And from this kind of like ideology of like the way I approach making music myself, that's how I came up with like Shake Shop. And we actually did like our launch party initially with like Moody Man and Eddie Folks.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't go to the show, but I saw the flyer. I was like, that's cool.
That was our launch, our initial one. That's another story, man. That was a nightmare and a half to do that show.
Really?
Oh man, that is. Dude, we were doing this like, and DJ Pier had like a space, and down on this like spot over in Ogden, and then it was supposed to be like an art studio. But apparently, like, Pierre didn't, like, clear things up with, like, the owner, or there was, like, some misunderstandings, and there was, like, things weren't properly insured, and this guy was, like, kind of like a slumlord, and he had, like, people, like, who were, and I'm not, like, making fun of them at all, or, like, I don't want this to be perceived this way, but there were people who were, like, really, really, really mentally ill. That were artists that were like living in this space without like running water and bathrooms, and they were like sculptors and painters.
This is
and stuff.
like one of those warehouses where like people are like you could make some really cool art in there, or it's just like a den.
Yeah, like I mean, put it this way, like there was a guy who proceeded to tell us that like there was like, because we were too loud, he couldn't sleep, and like because we're dumping trash like this, like he's like, oh, because you're putting like, you know, what is it, like liquor and stuff like this in this trash can, and this is attracting more bugs. And keep in mind, like the trash cans were like outside and a good like 250 yards downstairs through like 5 doors.
He was worried about bugs.
And so he was saying, he came to me one time like freaking out, and he goes, I fucking had it with you guys. You need to stop doing this, blah, 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 blah. Like my room is infested and I can't sleep, and I've got like, and he like clearly had like paranoid schizophrenia or something. Like he was, you know, whatever we were doing was disturbing him in a way that was making his mental health issues worse. And like I said, like the owner there was like just a complete scumbag. We, you know, like for example, the owner's like nephew like came and like to stop us from doing stuff in that space, like broke a key off on our door. Like the day of that party, I had to like hire a locksmith to come in to like pull this like key, this broken off key out of the door. And you know, he was like threatening to like call the cops on us all the time, even though we had like all the permits and everything we needed to do everything. And you know, and I was like, dude, like at one point I straight up told him, I was like, you call the cops on me, I'm calling the cops on you, because you have people like literally illegally living here.
Yeah.
You know, and
damn.
Yeah, I didn't know about any of this, and we got into this. We made this event happen, but whoa, I was like so happy to get out of that space.
Yeah, I can only imagine. That's like the opposite of a cool warehouse. It's just like, that's sketch. Yeah. Word. Well, thank you for shedding some light on that. Do you guys have plans for the future with that?
Yeah, so my plan is once we get some, this warehouse stuff's kind of sorted out and I have like a little bit of breathing room, I want to start.
Yeah.
I want to start with like just releasing my own music on Shake Shop, and then maybe having like people doing remixes. And then kind of once I have more bandwidth, that's going to turn into like another event series, mainly the stuff that I want to do like in Europe, and like focus on like smaller club shows, like 300, 500 capacity, like smaller rooms.
Yeah. And
then, I don't know, like, you know, start releasing music from other people, but I do want to focus more on like vinyl with Shake Shop.
Like proper record releases.
Because like I said, I think the model's more like sustainable and it's easier to scale, and like I don't know, like for me, like, you know, places like Beatport and Tracksource like a great place to like, you know, discover fans and people can discover your music. So I'll probably always still release music there, but I feel like pressing vinyl is something that you can like hold in your hands, and like that kind of like adds a little more value to the music. You know, if you spend $2 on a download and you buy it, like let's say you lose your USB stick, you're just like, meh, whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and
totally.
Also, I've always thought about this too. Besides the fact that Spotify literally controls what you listen to and your algorithm and all that, they could just turn it off.
Yeah, they can
tomorrow.
Yeah,
if they wanted to.
For sure.
And with
EMP blast, Spotify's down.
It's
not the first thing we would worry about.
With records, you know, it's also the personal relationships you have with like different record stores. And I kind of like that a little bit more. Like I like the idea of like having a community, knowing like I can call Cynthia in Berlin at Elevate and be like, hey, you know what? Like I got this new record coming out. I'd love to put it in your store. Like, hey, is there any way you can hook it up with like, you know, like a good point of sale? Like, can you put it like higher
cool
up
spot.
or put it?
We'll make it look cool. Yeah,
exactly. Like, and this is I can't call Spotify and like work out a deal with somebody because I have a relationship with that way.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that like, you know, I love about like Michael Serafini is like every time like these big name artists come into town, like, you know, Serafini makes it a point that like he, you know, people will come in and say, okay, well, what's the new hot shit? And then Serafini will just like personal shopper his way around the store, and he always makes sure that he like is putting in like local,
who's Michael Serafini?
Michael Serafini is the owner of Gramophone Records and the guy who runs the Queen parties at Smart Bar.
Oh, okay.
But cool. You know, Serafini's always making sure that he's like, you know, pointing people towards like Chicago producers and stuff like this, which I think is amazing.
He got me on to Octa and Eris Drew. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Michael cares a lot. Yeah. So
that's good.
Like if you have the time, go talk to Serafini at Gramophone. That man is a plethora of knowledge, like just like an encyclopedia of music.
Yeah, I bet. And he's not going to give you the like, you know, what kind of food am I going to get in Chicago? Like just pizza. We were talking hot dogs. This is a different episode. But he's going to give you a more nuanced answer.
Yeah.
Go to Harold's. Yeah.
Going to talking about music specifically. But
Want to hear a hot take?
Yeah.
Harold's is mid.
Ooh, what's your favorite wing joint?
Okay. I think coming from St. Louis, like I think like Chicago barbecue and like fried chicken, and it's like, I don't know. We got that southern twang a little bit in St. Louis.
Oh yeah, well, it's not like proper barbecue.
No, like St. Louis has like you've got barbecue,
Yeah.
you've got ribs, you've got brisket, but
That's all we got.
I mean, I was gonna say,
But it's good. It is good. Get that slow roast.
Yeah. That's ain't shit else to do but eat in St. Louis, but but yeah, that's my hot
That's the
take
hot
about
take.
Harold's.
Cool, man. Well, I don't know. We've been going for a sec. Want to do a little wrap up, which is, we talked about what your first concert was, but what's like your favorite, just most like game changing concert that you went to? You went to go see someone, you're like, dude, that was nuts.
Ooh.
It could be because of the venue. Could be because of that. Just it wasn't the venue at all, but the guy was throwing down or something.
There's been quite a few, and for different reasons. So one of the ones I think that like I was like, oh shit, this is how you play disco music, is I saw Derek Carter at Prince Charles in Berlin, and I, for the entirety of his set, didn't like leave the spot that I was in. And I was just like, holy crap. Like, because I already knew from like DJing, like how hard it is to mix disco, because it has like varying tempos,
yeah.
exactly. Plus you're doing with vocals and like different like elements. And like, man, he put that stuff together and blended it together like as if it was like one track. And I was like, holy shit. Like,
Is he babying the decks, or is he like pre-quantizing them? I don't know.
I was like off my face and having a great time.
So I wasn't thinking about the production.
Yeah, no. I wasn't looking at
Just
any of that.
enjoying it. Yeah,
I wasn't checking out how he was EQing everything. I was just like, Derek is killing it.
Yeah,
And that really opened my eyes to like how you can like really mix certain things in with like a lot of energy, and like I really learned a lot from like his mixing style. One of the other things I would say is like I saw was it like Honey, like Dijon, when she first moved to Berlin, playing Panorama Bar, and the way Honey like genre jumps and moves around and like does like a little bit of disco, a little bit of house, a little bit of techno, was like really, really eye opening. And then like listening to like I saw like Kahan play before she passed away as well, and like her interpretation of techno. The other one I would say is I was at ADE for a Height event, which was like spelled like HYATE. It was like from the production company of like Loco Dice, actually, called 99 Ghosts. Used to do these like Height parties, and I saw Ryan Elliott throw down in like a room of like 5,000 people in Amsterdam, and I was like, holy shit.
wow.
And I was like, okay, like Ryan will like literally move through like disco, techno, house, breaks, all like in one set, and it is like so flawless, and he's able to carry that energy into like every, like genre and music, and kind of like tell a story of it in a way where it's just like still like just like he can maintain like a certain groove throughout the entire thing without kind of like taking the wind out of the sails or changing the tempo up in such a way where it doesn't really like vibe with like the last like like tracks and stuff that he put on. And I think that was like where I was like, all right, well this is what like really, really good DJing sounds like.
Yeah, gotcha. Interesting.
Ryan Elliott, like if you don't know who Ryan Elliott is, look him up. Ryan Elliott,
For sure.
Shout out.
Something we didn't talk about, which I don't know if we actually will, which is just like drug culture, because I never want to just fully talk about that, but there's got to be some differences between here and Berlin / Europe in general.
depends.
All right, we'll just leave it at that, because honestly, like I don't want to.
I'll like summarize it real quick. Like It depends on the venue. So a lot of like bottle service spaces, like where like they're really trying to push like alcohol sales. Like you typically tend to see a lot of like, you know, the Colombian white special. We'll just say that. And then a lot of like the minimal scene does a lot of that like horsey nene powder. You know, that's like really
yeah. Starts with a K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually pretty big in the European scene as well.
I feel like it's getting big in general.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. And then there's obviously the everybody's like, you know, go-tos, the, you know, Molly and
the ecstasy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are the staples for sure.
Yeah.
But I would say like I personally don't like I don't like cocaine clubs. Like that. I mean, I think like, I don't know, to me like cocaine's like the devil, and I think it like brings out the worst in people. Yeah,
because it doesn't have that loving aspect of like the.
It's like it's really aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Not my thing, but hey, to each their own, you know. So
yeah. Thank you for giving us a quick lay of the land. I know we've shouted out a lot of people, but is there anyone you want to just give special credit to? Or just shout outs in general.
I mentioned a lot of names today and a lot of people that, you know, I respect and work with. Yeah, I don't know. Let's just like shout it out to the people. Let's shout it out to the people that
the people that we mentioned.
No, I would say like the people that care, the people that go out, the people that, you know, putting shows on and investing their time into the scene and, you know, putting that labor of love in, and the people that are buying tickets and going to shows and keeping it sustainable so we can keep doing what we love. Let's shout out to those people.
Yeah.
Love that.
Go. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, if you made it this far, good for you. Good on you. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Cheers.
Peace.
Peace.